I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
We're exporting a whole lot of really bad and dangerous rhetoric, bad research, and unfortunately it's being picked up and amplified in other countries.
It's the same battle, Mr. Myers. We've been at it before. They want to addict these kids, this time to an e-cigarette, which has a chemical that's addictive. We know what it leads to. Sadly, it leads to tobacco addiction, disease, and death.
I'm going to get you addicted to nicotine. I have a customer for life. We have hundreds of cases nationwide where people have gotten sick or died using these devices.
Look what they're trying to do. All the delicious flavors of e-cigarettes are poison.
They're not people giving up smoking. They're not people that ever smoked before. Most people that vape never smoked before. Just think if your kid was doing this and winds up with an IQ 10 or 15 points lower than he or she would have had for the rest of her life.
Most people who vape are current or former smokers. For the addicted adult smoker who switches, there's going to likely be a reduction in risk.
There's a tremendous push to bring about prohibition, to actually prohibit vaping. Whereas the evidence strongly suggests that actually, up to now, the most successful way of people stopping smoking cigarettes is vaping.
Yeah. When vaping increases, smoking decreases.
That's right.
When vaping is restricted, smoking increases.
We're worried that, in fact, a lot of members of the public still think that using an e-cigarette is as harmful as smoking a cigarette. So, I mean, I have said that it would be tragic if smokers didn't quit and carried on smoking because they hadn't tried an e-cigarette, because they were worried about the safety of an e-cigarette.
The most disheartening thing is still the anti-choice rhetoric, the desire to enforce this quit or die mentality and refuse to allow individuals to reduce their risk unless they're willing to give up everything.
I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
Well, hey guys, it's Friday and we're here again to have some fun, to educate, inform, and do a little media deconstruction, tear some stuff apart, and explain to you how you're being misinformed or how the general public is being misinformed, because I know that Bill and Yolanda and Rob and Mark and Victor that are currently in the chat room chatting, they have heard all this. They know that the general public is being lied to about vaping and about nicotine and about every other thing that we want to do to save ourselves that goes against the way that they want us to do it. We're not big fans of people telling us what to do and how to do it. And, that's just the way it's going to be. We're going to fight this whole idea that they know better than us. And that we're little children that must be controlled. So anyway, happy Friday. It's Friday evening here in Texas, and Kevin is in the wonderful, cold, and boring place of Ohio. And our special guest tonight is from the other side of the world, and it's morning for him. But we're gonna get there. John Barnes, howdy. How's it going? And I've already said everybody else's name that I can see. How's everybody's week been? I mean, there's been some stuff going on, a lot of excitement going on. One of our friends of the show, Miss Amanda Wheeler, announced the new project that she's involved with, and we'll probably get her and Char on at some point to talk about that. But tonight, we're doing international. We're blowing some borders, and we're going all over the place. But before we get there, let me bring Kevin in, because I'm sure Kevin is on fire, I say, to talk about what Kevin's been doing. So hello, Kevin.
I'm trying to raise my IQ.
That's a big task. Task.
All that nicotine I've been consuming this week is
Oh yeah.
Got into my brain. Really? Yeah.
Everybody,
Here it
look!
comes.
We got our you don't know nicotine swag to help our friend Aaron, and somebody's got a coffee mug. I think that's false advertisement though, because I mean that you're drinking caffeine in a receptacle that says nicotine on it. I can read that.
Oh, it's not going to go, is it?
No, even if it was clear, I just got my new trifocals in today.
There it goes.
And I see caffeine there. I see caffeine. But there's more people. There's our friend Miss DeSangles Winstead is in the chat room, and another John. There's several Johns now. And did I say Victor? Victor's in the room. Y'all need to be inviting your friends in. The link is there. Go ahead and share this to your friends, because this is going to be this is a groundbreaking show for us. We've spent a lot of time talking about international advocacy as laymen in the international advocacy scene, because really we're not there and we don't know people that are there. And there could be anywhere other than Australia, because we're pretty good about getting information about Australia out to you guys. But yeah, we need to get issues that are occurring all over the world to your ears, because you need to know what's going on in other places. Either A, has been play tested here, or B, is being play tested in other countries and going to come here. So I'm really excited to welcome. Hey, Keith. Really excited to introduce Mr. And I'm going to butcher this last name because I forgot to ask him before we started. I can say Samrat. That's his first name. Chowdhery is. He's backstage shaking his head. So I'm going to bring in the current president of INNCO, which is the International Network of Nicotine Consumer Organizations. And he's also the head of the Association of Vapers India. And you know how passionate I have been about India in this room. So let's welcome Samrat Chowdhery.
Hello. Hi.
And I did warn Samrat prior to going live that we are a little bit adult, and everybody that's here listening to the show has already placed their wonderful children to bed so that they don't hear any bad words that may accidentally come out of Kevin and I's mouth, and possibly even Samrat's mouth. It's possible. Henage was here last week, and Henage fits right in with us. Henage did not have any filters on. But I'm very excited because, I told you prior to going live that we've been following India and we've been following international issues from afar because, we don't really have boots on the ground there. So we're going to start recruiting boots on the ground, and you're going to be a pair of those boots for us because you get to talk about almost every country because INNCO covers every country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we have member organizations from 35 nations.
Yeah.
So
but before we get too huge and talk about all the huge things, we want to know about Samrat. We want and you tell me if I'm saying that wrong. I'll just call you Sam.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Tell us about Samrat and Samrat's smoking story and Samrat's vaping story.
Well, I started smoking like I think everyone else around 16, and I was smoking, and I picked it up from my dad, who was a heavy smoker, and of course, at the back of your head you want to quit, but I wasn't really very serious about it. I mean, when people would say you should, and I would tell them things like, okay, but everyone's gonna die. Smoking cuts out old age, and isn't that good? And all that sort of stuff. So I wasn't really keen on quitting, but my dad then one day quit, and 8 years later, he got lung cancer. And whenever we would take him to a doctor, first thing they would say that, oh, but he's been a smoker, and I'd get really pissed off because I'd tell him, hey, he quit so long ago. And they would say, no, but we look at his, as a medical professional, when I look at his x-rays and stuff, I can see that he has smoked all his life, and that's where the damage is coming from. Anyway, we lost him.
Sam, before everybody's saying they can barely hear you, can you move a little closer to your microphone, or move your microphone closer to you?
Sure. Can you hear me better? Is it better?
Well, it wasn't bad on my ear, but I don't have any way of boosting individual people's audio on this platform. So that's the only option we have, is move just a little closer to the mic.
Okay.
Does
this work? I mean,
yeah. Tom says yeah. Yeah,
okay.
You know, you're like this. But yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Sure. Anyway, so after I lost my dad, it was a big shock to me, and I thought, okay, you know, I shouldn't be making the mistakes he's been making. And then I tried really hard to quit. I mean, I tried gums, patches. I went to a doctor who I think gave me Vaseline, which just ended up making me feel really weird. So the net effect of all this trying was that I would stay quit for a while, then I'd be back, which would make me even more depressed, or sort of like, you know, I mean, there is a sense of failure attached to every failed quit attempt, you know, and I think that makes smokers, you know, resign to their fate. And I think that's one of the reasons when, you know, you talk about vaping to a hardened smoker, their first reaction is, man, it's not going to work. I think that's because they've tried so much and tried so many things and they didn't work, and they're just not convinced anything will. But you know, I've been a journalist most of my working career, and among journalists, I mean, it's just everyone smokes. You know, you're discussing stories on cigarette breaks, and your most productive moments are when you're taking cigarette breaks. So during one such cigarette break, I saw a colleague vaping. I was a little interested. I mean, of course, I did always want to quit, you know, I mean, in that phase. So I tried it. I borrowed the device from him for a while. And that was like a eureka moment, you know, because all the other times that I was trying to quit, at the back of my head, there was always this thing that, okay, you know, I want to smoke. There was that urge all the time. But with vaping, it was like really smooth. A week later, I was surprised that I was off cigarettes for a week. So that's how it all began. I connected with a community in India of vapers. And that's the time when bans started coming into India, and we decided to formally organize. And then one thing led to another. We joined INNCO later on. So here we are. So that's my journey really short.
Well, I mean, and it's like you said a while ago, just like everybody else, you know, you have to, you know, you quit. And I think we've heard accidental quit stories a couple times where people really didn't want, to quit, but they found the right setup, or you know, somebody introduced them to vaping, and the next thing you know, they're not smoking anymore. You know, obviously you had motivation. And a lot of us do, and we ignore it. You know, we know somebody that it's affected their health, or they've actually passed away, and we still, you know, we're still sitting there smoking. I know I've heard stories of people saying, you know, I was at my grandparents' funeral. My grandpa died of lung cancer, and after the funeral, the family's all standing around smoking.
Yeah,
it's just one of those things. But you know. The Association of Vapers in India, you know, that's got to be a true grassroots sort of thing, because there's not any, as far as I know, at least, there's no huge vaping companies in India, like we have, you know, here. We're the mecca of vaping. All of the huge vape companies are in America. I don't want to say all of them, but you know, most of them, you know, we're here. How is that? I mean, how hard was that to get started?
So you're right. It was completely organic and grassroots. There was a Facebook group where everyone just got together. It was like a self-help group, you know. And I so if anyone wanted to know something about which device to get, what works from me, where to get. So, we were connected from there, which is where, and when the bans started coming in. So what was happening was that states were beginning to ban. And we thought, okay, we need to push back against this in some way, else they'll just keep on spreading. At that time, we thought, okay, let's do something about it. We informally gathered, got onto calls, started speaking to each other. What can we do? We decided to legally challenge one of these bans. And that's when things really took off, because that required us to formally organize, to be a registered entity, to take that step. And that's how, everything was organic. It's not something, none of us come from an activist background. I'm a journalist. We look down upon activists because we know, we think that they are biased. And never did I think I would be one. So so was everyone else. Everyone was coming from different walks of life, but we were connected by a cause. We really thought that other Indians, and there's huge lot of smokers here, also deserve the right to switch to a less harmful alternative. So we challenged that ban, and court case. The latency in India is really high. If you file a case, it takes years for it to settle. During which time other bans started coming in. So we challenged a few more of them. That's how we started getting involved. And it wasn't planned. We didn't have the expertise to run an organization, but everyone learned along the way.
Yeah, most consumer organizations are by definition, started by regular folks, regular consumers. We've got CASA here in the United States, and obviously you're familiar with Julie, and Julie and the original CASA crew sort of built the model. I'm not sure, but I think CASA is probably the first consumer vaping organization that I'm aware of, at least in the world. And I'll tell you, I've been around Julie and Alex and all of the people in CASA for 10 years now. I've been vaping. I've been talking to Julie for 8 of those years. A lot of times it's well, this come up, how, let's figure out a way to make this not come up. Everything is trial and error. And, kudos to any group in the world who are made of consumers that are fighting for their right to save their own life. I almost dropped a bad word there. And that's essentially what we're doing is as consumers. I don't make $1 off of vaping. Kevin doesn't make $1 off of vaping. I'm assuming you don't make $1 off of vaping. So, none of us are going to get rich off of this. We're doing this to fight for ourselves and to fight for all of our brothers and sisters that are still smoking, that just haven't made the choice to stop, or haven't, nobody's come up to them and said, smoking's bad. How about trying this? Here's a setup. Let me give this to you. If you like this, and it helps you quit smoking, then I've done my work,
for this foreseeable future.
That's all we're doing, is we're asking for the privilege of helping people not die.
Choice.
Yeah,
and preserving their freedom.
Yeah.
Sure, that's what it's about. Telling people that an option exists, and and an option that really works.
Yeah.
And
so,
the right to access it. Go
on. Kevin and I obviously we've known who you were on Twitter forever. Like, I don't know if there's a way to say how long somebody's been following somebody on Twitter, but we've all known each other on Twitter. But I'll tell you, and I mentioned this earlier, what really got our attention was when we read the news story here on the show that vape shops closed for the evening in India, and then the next morning when they went to open their businesses, found out that their shops were padlocked. That really got our attention.
Yeah, that's kind of important.
Yeah. Could you talk about that? I mean, did you guys know that was happening? I mean,
well, we had an inkling. I'll run you through the vape ban, timeline in India. So WHO wields a lot of influence. So US is not part of WHO or the FCTC, but in developing countries, WHO wields a lot of influence because it funds a lot of programs, health programs. So obviously it has a seat on the table and it influences policy in ways that it would not do in Western nations. So that is one. So in 2014, when the COP, the FCTC meets, once in 2 years. So when they met in Moscow in 2014, some really strong language about vaping came out, about e-cigarettes. At that time, the Indian government set up a committee. They set up 3 committees, in fact, to assess vaping and its impact. Now, the way these committees were set up, all 3 of them ended up recommending a ban. So we knew then that there is intent on part, and this is how things are done. If you want to get something done, you set up a committee, pack it with people who are going to toe your line, and make suggestions to them what they should say, and they will say it. And then that you use that to then act further, right? So we knew this in 2015 that the government intends to ban. And so we were working since then, and that's when the state bans started sprouting up. India has about 25 states, and they started banning one after the other. Then there were some highs for us because we went to court, other people went to court. The courts saw the merit in what we were saying. So while the government first wanted to bring it under the pharmaceuticals, but the court struck that down, saying that, listen, these are not pharmaceutical products, they are not curing anything, there is no medicinal value to it. So when they struck that down, then the government went in a rethink and tried to come up with other ways. And then there were 2 other factors which I think were very important. One was the Bloomberg network, right? So it funds, so every single anti-e-cigarette crusader, individual NGO is funded or is linked to the same money. So they've created this big network of NGOs, local NGOs, who are shouting from rooftops, ban vaping, it's bad, and think of the children. And so that created a pressure on the government. There is also the elephant in the room is that the government itself owns about a third of the cigarette monopoly in India, right? So there is that direct interest. For all practical purposes, the government is a tobacco trader. Because if you're not owning like 1 or 2%, right? It's not an incidental share. It's like almost, 30%, right? So that's huge money. And that company sells 90% of cigarettes in the country. So it's a monopoly. So these 3 factors came together, right? They created a perfect storm because you have pressure from WHO, you have pressure from this Bloomberg network, and you also have the financial interest linked to it. So in last year in September, they said, okay, the courts are not favorable to our position. So let's go back and just pass an executive order. And that's what they did. So one day, so we were hopeful till all this point that, okay, with so many court losses, because in 2-3 courts, the government lost. We all thought that with so many setbacks in courts, the government will think twice before acting on it. But they were hell-bent. They just, rammed this through. They passed an executive order. The ruling party is an absolute majority in both houses of parliament. So in December, they managed to get it through the parliament, and then it was a law. So it was sudden to an extent that no one thought that it would actually happen. But there were signs of it, since almost 2015. And that's one of the reasons that the vaping industry didn't really take off in a big way in the country. There are vendors, or there were vendors who really wanted, I mean, they were entrepreneurs. They wanted to, of course, build a business, but also were socially conscious that they want to contribute to the tobacco problem. And in India, the tobacco problem is huge. I mean, the numbers are mind-boggling. There are 270 million tobacco users in the country. Over 100 million of them smoke. About 1 million of them die from smoking every year. I mean, this is just smoking, because there's also smokeless tobacco use. The economy loses about $25 billion a year from tobacco-related mortality and morbidity. So the problem is huge, and there's so many lives at stake. And we thought that, okay, there will be little more sensibility around this issue, because in countries where people have less access to healthcare, like a country like India, where people, if I got a cancer, then what are the avenues that I have to find a cure to it or get it treated? When I have less access, it becomes even more important that I look at prevention. But I think ideology and financial interests won over.
Well, you did drop a name in that's very that we are all aware of here on the show. But I wanted to point out something. So you mentioned Michael Bloomberg, and and I've showed this on the show before, but I'm going to show it again, because I really think everybody needs to understand the financial interest that not only are we disrupting the cash flow to big tobacco, which is an enemy, but they're not the biggest enemy. Obviously, big pharma has their market share reduced by the profitability and the success of vaping. Then we have obviously nations and states that are also losing money because of tobacco tax decreases, not in the actual tax itself, but in the money coming in because fewer people are smoking. And then we have people like venture capital assholes like Bloomberg. So this is about the Hale vaporizer, which looks like this. And this is a new product that is coming. But if you look at the about section, and I've showed this before, these are the people that are actually, developing the product, and these are their advisory people. But down here, this is a group. These are a group of investors. Now, this one right here, that's this V with a circle around it. This is a group called The Village. And now The Village is made up of billionaires and millionaires who invest money in the development of investments and money coming into them for the future. And obviously we have Abby Johnson, who is the president and CEO of Fidelity, which is a huge, huge, huge investment firm. Magic Johnson, Mark Zuckerberg, Bob Iger, who is the head of Walt Disney, the head of Google, Amazon with Jeff Bezos, one of the richest men, if not the richest man on the planet. All these other people. Oh, look, there's this poor guy down here. His name is Bill Gates. And we already know that Bill Gates wants to own the world. And then if you click on this button, obviously the CEO, former CEO of Yahoo is here. And then you just keep going through. This is a who's who of billionaires that want to control our lives. And oddly enough, I know for a fact that Michael Bloomberg is a member of The Village, but apparently his face is not included on that scroll. But yeah, I mean, we're quite aware that Bloomberg has a reason why he is, in one hand, full on anti-vaping, spent billions of dollars worldwide. When, for example, when America pulled out of the WHO funding last year, all he did was step up and write a check for more than what we normally pay. Like, that's all he did. He just wrote a check and handed it to the WHO and said, well, since America is not going to be there, I'm going to step in and pay America's share, or what you would have lost if. Oh, and here's extra. As part of that, I really want you to go against vaping. I really want you to push. And I mean, literally, they've been doing that for 3 or 4 years, if not longer, but they've been really, really vehemently pushing against vaping for the last 4 years. And like you said, in smaller developing countries, and that's where they have the most pull. You look at places like Africa, like Southeast Asia, Pacific Asia, India. Those are countries that are not going to turn down, WHO funding for their public health programs. And they took I don't know if this is their page or if it's an American public health thing, but here in America, when we were going balls to the wall fighting anti-vaping bills here in the United States, and I mean, we've been fighting since 2013, 2014, really aggressively on local levels, because what the American Lung Association or American Heart Association or Truth or any of these, Legacy or any of these American public health organizations would do is they will go to the director of public or a director of the health department in local places and say, hey, we really want you to do a public vaping ban in your city. And if you do so, we'll write you a check for $15,000 as a grant to do with whatever you want. No small city in America is going to say no to an additional $15,000, $20,000, or $30,000 check, because they obviously, there's all these really important things that they're doing, vaccines for kids, and all sorts of other things that the Department of Health do need money. So when Thailand or the Philippines or India or whatever, when somebody's coming with a check and says, we really want you to pass a public vaping ban, or we really want you to pass a prohibitive tax on vaping so that vaping will go away in your country, here's a check. Most of the time, these people that don't use these products, the people that aren't aware of the beneficial nature of these products, they're going to just say yes because they need the money.
Sure. So for your American audiences, you just laid it out. I'll expand to what Bloomberg is doing in other countries. So one word we have for it is philanthrocolonialism or philanthrocapitalism. When India's ban has come, this is going back to the hail that you pointed out. So while there is a ban on consumer products, a backdoor has been kept open for medicalized vaping products. So if Bloomberg was tomorrow to launch that product in India, it would be legal because a door has been kept open for that, while all consumer products have been banned for sale. That's one. Second is, you are quite right in that the Bloomberg charities, right? They directly fund state departments. So it is not, usually what happens is when the government wants to do a public program, it does it in partnership with a funder, right? But here, there is a direct funding to that state department, which anyway violates laws, but also makes them very amenable to anything that you may come up with. So like you said, it's pretty much giving them a check and telling them to do your bidding. And that is how the state bans in India started sprouting up, because these charities or these Bloomberg, they have their funding partner or their funding manager in India is the CTFK and the union, right? So they make grants on behalf of Bloomberg. I mean, they are funded by Bloomberg, and they're the ones making grants. So that's how the bans started coming in. Look at what's happening in Africa, for example. They have gotten on. So what they're doing is they're going to a country, ensuring that there's a ban, and then moving on to the next one, ensure there's a ban there, moving on. So they're just doing these things as projects. After the India ban, they moved to Bangladesh, and now there's a pressure on the Bangladesh government to ban these products, even before many people know about them. So they're just striking really at the beginning of. I mean, before everyone is really aware of their harm reduction potential. Because when the debate took place in the Indian Parliament, most of the MPs had not even seen these devices. So they were being made to legislate or give their opinion on something which they had not seen, leave alone know, what they can do. So for them it works because they're acting in absence of knowledge. In Africa, now the nicotine pouches are, and they're cheap. They're a harm reduced product. They can be made cheap and they can work for a lot of people, especially in LMICs, low and middle income countries. But the unions and the CTFKs have gotten active in Africa and now they're pushing for bans on that. So it's just a prohibitionist mindset. I mean, look at what's happening in Philippines, for example. They tried to push a ban, but the legislators shot back saying, okay, the FDA, which is pushing for this sort of a policy, is being funded by Bloomberg. So isn't there a conflict of interest that an agency which is receiving money from Bloomberg is talking about banning vaping? And they are calling for a probe in that. And I think that probe should happen, across nations. That these departments or these organizations which are pushing for a ban, especially the government ones, are they being funded by Bloomberg money? Because you can trace all this anti-vapism back to that same funding source. And of course, if you're pumping in $1 billion, you are going to, and especially in LMICs, your money is going to travel far. The other thing they do is, and they do it quite well, they have created this network of the stop and the tobacco tactics. So anyone who begins to speak against them gets branded as a tobacco stooge, or there are efforts to delegitimize them, and that we face as consumers, consumer advocates across the world. That if you start speaking against anti-vaping policies or anti-THR policies, the first thing would be an attempt to brand you as a tobacco industry person, as AstroTurf, block you from even attending conferences. There is the thing that, okay, tobacco people should not be allowed to influence policy. Attending a seminar or participating in one, how can that be influencing anything anyway? But yet they will not let you in. So that is Bloomberg's work for you internationally, and it is drawing a heavy cost.
I mean, a lot of us may or may not remember this, but there was a cop in India, right? What was that? Cop 5?
Yeah, 2016.
Yeah, and at the time, our friend Aaron had completed his film and was traveling to India to show it to people at COP. They, weren't invited to come to COP, and our very good friend David Gerlitz actually was supposed to travel to that event, and David had received the World Health Organization Tobacco Hero Award, got a medal from the WHO, and due to the fact that he had associated himself with vaping and had been in this film, somehow got his travel papers pulled so that he couldn't actually attend. Like he got stuck in
he didn't look like himself.
Like the Chechnya or somewhere. He got stuck in some country and couldn't even get on the connecting flight to go to India because his papers had been pulled and he wasn't allowed to go, and he got stuck in a hotel in some foreign country for a week.
His passport photo was different. They were questioning the passport. That boy's ugly no matter what you do.
Not when he was the Winston man. He was a very rugged and handsome individual when he was the Winston man. That was the whole point.
He's still a looker.
Demi will get jealous if you start flirting with other men. I saw Cherry was in the room. Hello, Miss Cherry Lai. So yeah, it was crazy. The lengths that these people will go to, and yes, David had returned his medal, like he had put it in a box or an envelope and sent it back to the people that had given it to him. but it
About an
the length, and these people have unlimited funds, virtually unlimited funds. They have their toes in the door in all of the parliaments of power, especially in smaller countries and lower income countries, like you were saying. It's embarrassing how we've allowed money to control health. And I know that somebody had said in the chat room that they wasn't vaping banned in India. It was Rob. And is the act of vaping banned, or just the purchase of vaping products banned?
So they couldn't ban the act of vaping because that goes against personal liberties. It will not stand in the code of law. So they started by banning sale of these products, but they went a step further, and they worded it very vaguely, saying that promoting vaping, which means it sort of puts a question mark on our work. Though of course we don't want to care so much about it because we are quite self-assured in what we are doing. We're not selling any product, but there should be no bar on us talking about harm reduction. Then the next thing they did was, when they saw that India is a country where it's impossible, and this is true for most LMICs, it's impossible to enforce bans. You don't have the infrastructure to actually implement a ban like that. I mean, not that you can do it in the West either, right? For example, in UK, there was a Ernst & Young report out earlier this year, which said that the sale of illicit cigarettes in UK had gone up the highest, right, in Europe. So, and I'm sure if this PMDA thing doesn't work out, you will have that in US too. So
already do.
Yeah, so there will be black markets, more so in LMICs, where you have just no mechanism to even think about enforcing something like this. But they went a step further, and they tried to be creative about this. They banned vaping on flights, so which means you couldn't take your your gear through airports, neither in your carry-on or neither in your check-in. So that's how they tried to go after consumers. We are again going to challenge that in court. It's just because of the pandemic, everything is sort of going slow right now. But yeah, using a vape is not banned, but that's not stopping anyone from a cop from trying to fleece you or trying to haul you to the police station, asking you where you got it from, and that kind of stuff. So there is harassment of people, but there is no legal backing to it.
My wife is from the Philippines, so that's a place that's near and dear to my heart. And when you see, I've traveled the world. I know that the smaller or the poorer the country, the more corrupt the government is, and the more corrupt that the police are. Obviously, somebody can pay off somebody, no problem. But then again, you might get that one cop that just is going to go after you for any reason whatsoever. And, it sucks that they can just shake you down like that.
Yeah. I was in Thailand last year, and I was vaping, and I got picked up. My friend got picked up by a cop. We went to the police station. They tried to fleece as much. Then we heard that this is how much you should pay if you get caught, which is funny because there was like a system, right? So then we told him, but this is how much people pay, and then we had to pay that much and leave just for vaping, for vaping. And I thought that was ridiculous. Where Thailand government owns the tobacco monopoly, right? They own the tobacco completely, the entire business.
Yeah. Obviously we have government monopolies on tobacco all over the world. Obviously, China is the biggest probably tobacco monopoly, just based on, what is the population of India?
It's 1.3 billion.
1.3 billion people in India.
You're not
And,
gonna
you know,
stop
India is not a small country, but it's not huge either. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it
elbow
is.
to elbow there, you know.
Yeah, well, the cities are really crowded, but you know, if you go down to the rural areas, it's okay.
Gotta have a little elbow room. And, you know, America,
Yeah, this,
if we were as densely populated as India, I mean, we would be a surly crowd.
the first thing that you'd notice when you land in Mumbai is, wow, that's so many people, you know, just not used to so many people.
Yeah.
So, but it's something you grow accustomed to if you stayed here for a while.
Whew. But what is the smoking population of India?
It's 110 to 120 million people.
So, you know, if we added all the vapors and all the smokers together into one number and we said, hey, you know, you guys need to fight for your rights. Every smoker and vapor in the world, you know, if you say to a smoker, hey, you know, you've chosen to continue to smoke and, you know, that's your right. That's your choice. But, you know, the government is obviously not in the States because the tobacco companies are protected here. The government has agreed to never, ever, ever ban the sale of cigarettes in the United States. But if you tell people all over the world, hey, you know, the government's coming after the thing that you like. And whether I like smoking, I mean, I loved smoking. When I was a smoker, I loved smoking. If somebody had come to me and said, the government's going to come after your cigarettes, they're going to say you can't have what you want. You should stand up for yourself. You know, we should be aligning ourselves, because we want to save those smokers. We want vaping to be around so that one day when that light bulb appears above their head, they wake up in the morning and they're coughing because their lungs are damaged and full of ick. That one day they're going to say, you know what, I need to stop. I really need to stop. And they're going to go and ask people, and they're going to say, oh, well, vaping, there's a new study out that says, here, I'll throw it on the screen. There's a new study that says that vaping is more successful at getting people to quit smoking than any pharmacy product on the planet.
70% more effective.
So if people get this information, if smokers were given this information and they and were shown the evidence, shown this and says, yes, vaping, an electronic cigarette, will help you quit smoking more successfully than any other available avenue, you should try it. But then they're going to say, well, vaping's banned in my country. I can't have that. Or vaping is banned in my city. I can't get that. Or you know, any of those things. The more of these style survey or studies that come out that prove what we've been saying for a decade, the better for us. And even if I saw an anti-vapor guy trying to torpedo the science in this, trying to say, well, you know, it's such a small difference, blah, 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 blah. I think he doesn't know how to read a study. He doesn't know how to read the science. 70% more effective is more effective, right?
Way more effective.
Nothing is 100%. Nothing in this life is guaranteed. But it sickens me when I see people who claim to be a doctor, and there are people that went to med school and graduated and are actually making money as doctors that are really not doctors. That they're you know, they're just a cash machine. They're just a money in, money out machine, and that's what. You know, these are, public health in name only. There are plenty of people that claim to be a doctor, that claim to care about public health, that claim to care about saving lives, and all they're really doing is cashing a check. That's all they do. When they come out so aggressively against something that is so clearly professionally done, The science and the modeling on this are perfect. There's nothing here that you can shoot down. This is not a glance study.
Yeah, well, just, the last study that they did in 2015 is up on WHO's own website.
Mhm.
So it is that level of evidence where it's widely recognized. I mean, Cochrane reviews are top-line reviews. But now it'll be interesting to see how they're going to counter this, because of course they will. Because it's not about saving lives, it's more an ideological war. So they will find a way around it.
The ideologues, I'll use your word, the ideologues don't care, because obviously when a gland study comes out, it gets shared, and then a week later, when it gets retracted because of bad science, bad methodology, bad everything, they don't stop sharing it. They continue to quote that study that's already been retracted, because nobody is there to counter them by saying, well, that study's already been retracted. The publisher retracted it because the scientist wouldn't. Glance is never voluntarily going to withdraw something. Are you holding that? I didn't even say a bad word yet.
You just said glance. What the fuck is wrong with you?
So, yes, we do have a we didn't explain this to Sam.
Sam's like, what is he doing?
when one of us curses, the drink sign comes up, because those of us that are in PM time, we're in PM over here. It's appropriate for us to have an adult beverage. The guy that holds up the sign, though, is a coffee drinker.
I love coffee.
So it's not fair.
I'll get drunk with you.
There have been evenings where we have gotten quite angry and quite drunk, but not tonight. Not tonight. We have a professional on tonight. We have to be impressive. So yeah, I mean, the ideologues are never going to accept science, regardless of how quality the science is, because it doesn't run, parallel to their story, their mission, their desired end result.
Narratives.
Or narrative.
Yeah, I want to say a few things here. One is that the number of smokers since 2000 and up to 2025 has been above 1 billion and will continue to be above 1 billion. Right? So despite all this global effort to reduce tobacco use, the number of smokers still remains over 1 billion. They started with, I think, 1.3 or 4 billion, and they are, they're still over 1.1 billion, right? So it's not changed much what they're doing. Now, in a normal course of things, if you've pumped in so much money globally into something and it has not worked, you would look for things that work, right? But that's not what's happening. They're just doubling down on what they had been doing. So the favorite of a trick they have in their bag is let's raise taxes, without understanding that if you're going to raise taxes beyond a point, it's going to force people to shift to cheaper, more harmful products. It's not that they're going to quit. So there's lack of imagination. What I also find really infuriating is when something is leading to so many deaths in the world. It's the leading cause of preventable death in the world. The medical professionals are still not seeing it for what it is, that it is dependence, it is addiction. You look at it like that in those terms, and not that smokers are waking up every morning and making a choice whether to smoke or not. It's not a choice. It is something that they're dependent on, and respect that and find ways to work with that, rather than having these quit lines where you can call and they'll give you advice, or please quit, you will die, your family will die. That doesn't work. But when so many people were dying from something, you'd be a little more interested in finding solutions and not having this ideological let's end tobacco use. See, when in 2003, when the FCTC was negotiated, there were no harm reduction alternatives in the market. So maybe at that point, it was a valid goal to look at ending tobacco use, because there was nothing else that they could think of, right? I mean, I would still imagine that they would want to find ways to limit the death and then not just the use itself. But in 2008 or 7, 8, 9, 10, when vaping and other harm reduction products started becoming popular, those goals should have been revised. But no, they're saying that this is an added problem. I mean, how can you even imagine harm reduction to be an added problem? I mean, what should be your goal? That you want people not to die from tobacco use, or you want people not to use nicotine at all, and which is going to lead to better results or better outcomes and more immediate outcomes? Because at this current rate that they are going, it would be the end of century before they eliminate tobacco use, and like 1 billion people will die, and that's going back to the Aaron name of the documentary. Why do you want to lose 1 billion people when you have solutions which you can back, which have shown results in countries which have backed these solutions? So it's ideological, but it's murderous in a way.
So let me ask you a question. I don't know if this has ever come up on purpose in any control meeting where anybody has been in it, but the WHO's Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, Part 1, Section D says literally, tobacco control means a range of supply, demand, and harm reduction strategies that aim to improve the health of a population by eliminating or reducing the consumption of tobacco products and exposure to tobacco smoke. So they're going against their own line. That's the line. And I've never understood that. I don't know that we can get in front of somebody and go, to whatever the guy's name is this week, the doofus with the body bag comment a few weeks ago. Look at what you say here, and then listen to what you're telling the world. It's completely asinine. Is that a drink word? So that frustrates the shit out of me.
See, it's more insidious than that. One is that they're denying their own charter, and it's Article 1D, right? It's a defining. It's on your front page. Mm-hmm. This is how you're defining terms in the rest of the document. I think it was written at a time where they didn't fully appreciate what harm reduction is. It was also, I think, taken from addiction treatment. UN Charter on Drugs Policies, which is really strong on harm reduction, by the way. They recognize that users should be part of policymaking, which is not happening in the case of tobacco users. For example, 1.1 billion people now don't have a voice. They don't have any forum on which they can participate. They don't have a means to say what works, what doesn't. They're not part of policymaking. If they try to be part of policymaking, they're excluded. I mean, if that is not a violation of human rights at a massive scale, then what is? But, also in their own programs, for example, they have that Empower program, which lists 6 things that people or government should do to reduce tobacco use. And in that, offering help to smokers is the least implemented of their own goals. Of the over 180 countries that are part of FCTC, only 23 implement that at best practice level. So they're not even considering helping smokers. And how weird can that get? What are you trying to do here? If 1.1 billion people don't matter, then what is the point of this whole treaty and this whole policy, and what are you trying to do?
That's a point. That's a good point. So anyway, let's talk about INNCO.
Sure.
Let's talk about INNCO. So obviously, I have your website up, and I said what it was. This is the International Nicotine. What is this? INNCO. What is that, Samrat?
International Network of Nicotine Consumer Organizations.
Yes. So that's you click here on members, and there's what, 35 countries represented here?
And more being added as we speak. We just got Taiwan, some nations in Africa are joining, some Latin American nations are also joining.
I mean, this is a big deal. This is obviously for America. We know who Kasai is, and they're right up here beside India. We're standing side by side with India.
That's because I think it's alphabetical. But
but I mean, this is a big deal because this is like the consumer advocacy organizations from every country that's organized. I mean, obviously there might be some there might be some groups that haven't asked to be invited or whatever, but I mean, this is a big deal because this is all of the united voices of consumer vapers across the world. I mean, we talked about unity and a unified message last week with Henage, and that's a big deal. Is getting everybody. I mean, I've been doing advocacy in the United States for about 8-9 years, pretty steady. Sometimes it's really difficult to get all of these voices to unify. It's like what we use the phrase herding cats. It's got to be pretty difficult trying to run an international coalition on the scale that this is.
See, INNCO again is really organic, and it was born out of a need, because look at the opposition, like look at the people who are on the other side. They are the WHOs, they are national governments, they are the Bloombergs, lots of money, lots of power, lots of influence to shape policy. And we as vapers, even within our countries, we find ourselves really outrun by this opposition. But how do we then talk about our needs, what we want, how should policy be which is favorable to us at an international level? I mean, all this venom is being spewed out of WHO, FCTC. How do we make our voices heard at that level? So it was important that organizations from across the world come together. In 2016, at the GFN Global Forum of Nicotine, which Jerry and KAC do, that's where, at that time, mostly European organizations came together and said, okay, yes, we need to join hands. We need to pull our resources together. We need to amplify our voice at an international level so that we can shape some policy. And that's how things grew. INNCO has been very merely funded right up to this year, in fact, when we have secured some funding from the foundation. And that was, again, a very, we did put a lot of thought into it, because the way this whole game is designed, it's just completely, all odds are stacked against us. We cannot take funding from vaping companies, from tobacco companies, from pharmaceuticals, maybe, but which pharmaceutical company will ever fund us? So our funding sources are really limited. And until we can have some resources, how do we become effective? So foundation was a funder. They looked at us, they looked at our work, they saw the potential in us. So for the first time, we have a year-long funding where we can do stuff. But it's a long road. I mean, there has to be more cohesion. We need to get everyone together. We need to also have a messaging which is appropriate for the regions that, because not everyone has the same issues. So that's why it's a network where organizations have a say. It's a democratic organization which elects its leaders, which elects who is going to be in the governing board. So it's a truly representative consumer organization, international organization. There's lots to do, but if people come together, we can. The number of vapers globally has, a new report is coming out in November which says 70 million vapers globally, which is a public health miracle that it happened in under a decade. And despite all that shit that's being said about vaping in so many countries and the bans. Okay, I earned one.
He's gonna pop a top at 5 p.m. to give that drink later on. Because have you had breakfast yet?
No, it's way early here. I'll have it after this.
So you woke up early on your day off,
so that I'm not just talking in my sleep.
You're doing a very good job. You're doing. I mean, you don't act like you just woke up, so that's good. So one of the things that got our attention, obviously, we talked about World Vape Day. We did a really special show here on World Vape Day, but I did want to show this. So I'm going to throw this on screen. This is just a I think 2.5 minute video from the Vapers India, and I want my viewers to see it again. If you didn't watch it on World Vape Day, I think you should pay attention to this, because these are people that have essentially been outlawed in their country, standing up for vaping. So anyway, check this out.
I am a former smoker who smoked
25 cigarettes,
25 cigarettes,
20 cigarettes,
30 cigarettes, 8 to 10 cigarettes,
15 cigarettes a day for more than
15 years,
28 years,
10 years,
for 15 years, 10 years,
10 years.
It began with a few puffs here and there with friends, but before I knew it, it was a strong, unbreakable habit.
After a while, I noticed that my stamina was going down. I could not jog easily, I could not climb stairs easily. I knew it was hurting me, but I simply could not quit.
And having tried almost every other alternative therapy there is, I chanced upon a vape, and curiosity got the better of me.
I read about this on the internet, connected with people regarding this, and bought my very first vape gear.
It was one of the best decisions I have ever made. Within days of picking up the vape, I had completely given up smoking, and I have never looked back ever since.
Recently, the government of India took a very wrong decision to ban vaping, saying it was promoting smoking amongst the youth.
And despite a mountain of evidence that it was indeed safer than smoking or any other form of tobacco, presented wrong facts to the Indian people.
We need to join hands to fight this ban together. We need you to help us help you.
We need to protect our right to choose and our right to safer alternatives.
The world of vapers are coming together on 30th of May to celebrate the World Vape Day.
Every vapor in India should be proud that they vape, proud that they have picked a safer alternative.
Every vapor in India should pitch in, and with the rest of the world, get our voices heard.
We are vapers, we celebrate World Vape Day. We have said no to tobacco. Tweet and post messages with these hashtags.
Hashtag World Vape Day, hashtag End Vape Ban, hashtag Tobacco Exposed.
Let's come together and have our voices heard. We owe it to ourselves. It's our right.
So get on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, any social media platform, but please do.
This is happening on 30th May 2020 and every 30th May hereafter. Join us and register on AVI for more ideas.
Come online to speak to the world on AVI Live. Looking forward to your presence there.
Let us come together. Let us shout out loud and make our presence felt on this World Vape Day, 30th of May 2020 and thereafter.
We are the Vapers of India, and we are proud of it. This 30th May, on the World Vape Day, all the vapers around the world and India are uniting. And together, we will be victorious.
So, Kevin, did you notice any huge differences between what they were saying in India and what we say?
Huge difference? No. I saw
No
a bunch of beautiful.
No huge difference. People standing up for themselves, people standing up for their brothers and sisters, people basically all the same stuff. This is very much the same message that we try to get across every single week. These people, they're just like us. They're our brothers and sisters. They have the same, well, not the same issues, obviously, because theirs is a little bit more drastic than ours, but they're fighting the same war that we're fighting.
and we're fighting for them, and they're fighting for them, and we're fighting for us, and they're fighting for us.
So, I fail to see how anyone could say that's not my fight.
Exactly.
It's all connected, and
human rights. Yeah. Mark would like a link to that video.
Oh, it's on YouTube. I don't have it open. I actually downloaded it so that I could play it in full screen fun. But AVI has a YouTube page. So if you just type in Association of Vapers India on YouTube in a search, it should pop up. There's a whole bunch of videos there, by the way. There's a whole bunch. You guys are quite active, which is good. It's good to see.
Yeah, we do. We host an event like a talk show like this where we invite people once or twice a month. It's called Funvacacy. We wanted to keep it light and not get very serious about it, so people could ask questions and just generally have a conversation. So yeah, so those videos are also there on that. On World Vape Day, I wanted to say something. It is something which Julie from CASA led right from the front. The idea was because the World No Tobacco Day is when a lot of anti-vaping propaganda comes out, right? Initially we weren't sure whether we should time it near that because we didn't want to be accused of trying to overrun the gate crash their party. But it was also important that we balance the narrative, right? We talk about the science. I mean, no one wants to be aggressive, but at least, we sure do want to put out our points. So, and also Spain already was doing, and the Latin Americans were doing an event around that date. And we said, okay, let's go global with that. So Julie put in a lot of work. We got a website up. Angela is from ANSVAP in Spain. She put in a lot of work. I mean, everyone chipped in. Everyone pulled in resources. In India, we tried to do our thing. As you can see, CAFRA, Nancy, and the whole Asian groups, they chipped in. Latin Americans did a whole day sort of event. So everyone chipped in. The end result was that when you look at the World No Tobacco Day tweets, we outnumber their tweets by some, percentage, like a huge one. And now that is the power of people, because we are not employed, and World No Tobacco Day was on a Sunday, and which could have led to them tweeting less because they are employees. They're doing this because their organization has taken a stand and they're doing it. But we are consumer advocates who are talking about, we are fighting for our health and our life, right? And then that was, and this was the first edition.
Well, and we're really, power of people. We like to hijack hashtags. We're fairly good. We're fairly good at hijacking hashtags.
So that was excellent. I mean, if you just if you go and type World No Tobacco Day or World Vape Day and the combined hashtags, we just and that's people. That's people for you when they speak up. They have a strong voice. Social media is a friend. We may not be able to pay for really expensive conferences and events, but on social media, we are a significant power. And if we all start tweeting or engaging on social media, calling out bullshit when we see any, that's going to have huge impact.
And eventually you might be in a study.
Yeah, you may get so successful at your Twitter that the academic studies will be authored claiming that you're not a human being. Like Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there are efforts to delegitimize us already. Tobacco Tactics has a page on us. And I don't know in which other field are consumer advocates just branded industry. In 2018, when this COP was being held in Geneva, some 17, 18 organizations, vaping consumer organizations gathered there. We wanted to be part of the proceedings. We were thrown out. after the plenary session, because apparently we are industry. By which measure are we industry? So yeah,
they want to
Well,
do
they
something.
also got rid of every media outlet too.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't see how attending a conference can be influencing the outcome. You're not speaking at it. You're just there. How
Just watching.
and yeah. See, for example, there were a lot of countries. For example, Canada, EU, Mexico, even they wanted transparency for these events. Because these are closed door events. You don't know what's going on. See, half the world's global tobacco production is controlled by countries which own interests in tobacco companies, right? So they are institutional traders. So anyway, this is just a background. I'll come to it later. So these proceedings are secret. The big tobacco companies anywhere inside that room, because of the immense influence they wield. But we consumers, if you look at drug policies, or when they meet for their COP, users are part of those deliberations, or climate deal, or anything. The affected party is always part of that conversation, or on women rights or anything of the sort. But when it comes to tobacco users, we are not part of those deliberations of these policies which affect us the most. Yep. So we got thrown out. We had to protest outside. We tried to speak to some of these people. They wouldn't talk to us, but they would come out, stub their cigarettes, and just look at us and just walk back in, and that's how weird it was. And that's, I think, why we need INNCO and the role that it can play if we all got together and backed it and, spoke in one voice.
And just repeated. Just repeat the words. Just follow them on Twitter and share every tweet and comment on every tweet. And, that's the thing, is people don't quite understand like you said, the value of social media, tagging your legislators on the right tweets, on the messages that need to get out. That's the important thing. Is we're preaching to the choir here. I mean, everybody that's in this room, everybody that's watching this on Twitter or on YouTube or on Facebook or listening on the replay, by and large, we're preaching to the choir. So I like to tag politicians on the tweets. I like to let them know, hey, we're here and we're talking about you. Kevin loves to invite the Surgeon General to every show, knowing that the man won't come because he's already blocked me because I embarrassed him and doesn't like my name anymore. But yeah, I mean, that's the sad part, is we have all the information, we have all the truth, and just getting it into the right people's ears is difficult.
Yeah, I how we are unique is that we are a community of people who are very well informed on the science and policy generally. The reason we are, because it is a life and death issue for us. It's not a hobby. It's something we are acting towards our health. But that makes us super informed. That also makes us good people to be challenging our legislators or bureaucrats or whoever's spewing bullshit, to actually call them out when we see it on social media, or we can write to them. I mean, CASA is doing a wonderful job. When AVI we were forming, we still look up to CASA for the work that it's done and how effective it's been. So, and I hope that other organizations or other people in countries where they don't have organizations are looking at these organizations and figuring out how to formally organize a movement there.
I'm going to step away for a minute, Kevin. You're in charge while I'm gone.
I'm in charge. Oh, goody. So, Samrat, you've got Judy over there with you. Judy Gibson, right?
Yeah, Judy. She is in the secretariat.
She's
quite instrumental.
A very smart lady.
She's awesome.
Did you have at one time Robert Inns as well, or was he part of it? He was okay. Yeah. I was thinking he was, but I wasn't sure. I know he's stepped.
So we have a governing board, and it's in rotation. So people from different organizations come in, play their part. It's super collaborative. No one owns nothing. Everyone is just trying to put in their, do their bit to make it work.
Right, and it's not easy. Being on any board is not easy, but I think I don't know. I don't recognize all of them, and I think I closed the. Yeah, Judy's in there.
So Angeles right now is the vice president. Angeles from Spain. Spain has a really strong movement thanks to Angeles and her peers.
Yeah.
They organized a sort of a vape protest last year. If you look up, you will see wonderful pictures of people coming together and protesting policies. I mean, anti-THR policies in Spain.
Yeah.
We have Ingmar, who's the treasurer. He's from Estonia. Estonia again has a strong movement.
Yeah.
I mean, they have fought policies, and in fact, they have shaped policy in the country. We have Rob from Netherlands. Again, a long-standing, strong organization. They are fighting a flavor ban right now. We have Asa Saligupta from Thailand.
Good.
They are in a similar shitty situation like we are in India, but again, fighting hard. Then we have Thomas from Mexico.
Okay.
They have an uphill battle, and I would urge vapers in US to really support them in their fight, because they are looking at an impending ban, and that will have impact across Latin America. And
yes.
I believe their new health minister is trying to find ways to ban it, and whatever support can be provided to fight that ban, or that that negativity that's beginning to brew. I mean, sale has been banned for a while, but it's widely available. But now they're looking at a national formal ban.
Yeah, and
so that's the board.
You don't have any slouches. Thomas is a Mexican lawyer, and
yes,
and who's the other one? Well, Claude says he's a normal citizen, but I bet he's smarter than that. Let's see, who's the other one? Web design. Roberto.
In Mexico.
Yeah. There's some heavy education. Let's put it that way. You guys aren't screwing around with just consumers. We come from such a wide variety of life, from scientists on doctors, all that stuff, and it stuns me that you can walk in as professionals, some of them, in the consumer group, and you're looked at as idiots, and I don't understand that. I'll never understand it. I did drop the link for the About Us for INNCO on the chat, but it's an amazing group of people, and Julie's on there, obviously, from CASA. We talked about her.
So in the secretariat we have Julie. She was the president of the board last year, and we are in a transition phase where we want to professionalize the secretariat. So she's helping us in that transition. We have Kim Debastian from Denmark. Again, he's been really instrumental in helping INNCO stand up. Judy, of course, has been with INNCO. I mean, she's the one who put in the initial effort to get everyone together. So she's done really great work and continues to do that.
Yeah.
We have Atakan, who's an excellent, who's been in harm reduction work, tobacco harm reduction work since really long, because he's been, he's from Sweden, where they had snus, right? And that snus fight predates the THR, the vaping fight by like a decade or more, right? So, really very knowledgeable. Also, Olivier from Switzerland, again, very, very knowledgeable. So yeah, it's a lot of expertise from across the world.
Yep, and you guys do. I can't see the page offhand. I was looking while I was listening. It's not just vaping. It's whatever. Heat not burn is listed in that page anyway. And
yeah. So when we started, I'll tell you our journey in India, for example. When we started out, we were talking about vaping, and that's how we are Association of Vapers India. But the tobacco use spectrum in our country is wide, right? For instance, for every smoker, there are 2 smokeless tobacco users. The smokeless tobacco in India is different from the one in the West. It's super deadly because it add a lot of shit to it, and it leads to a lot of deaths, right? So making that distinction right at the start. So when we started, we wanted to help solve or look at reimagine the tobacco solution to the tobacco problem, right? Because until now the solution has been let's raise taxes, let's impose bans, and it's not really working. So, but then to do that, then you'd also have to look at other products, harm reduction, whatever works for anyone. We just want people to reduce their harm and be agnostic. But of course, most of our organizations are vaping focused, but we also have snus focused organizations from Europe, like EU First Snus is a member. And in certain countries, so solutions can vary in different places, but a message that's let's look at tobacco harm reduction, that message is valid across platforms. So we are increasingly product agnostic in the sense we talk about vaping, H&B if it works for people, snus of course if it works for people.
And Atiken obviously was a big proponent of that. So yeah. And Jennifer asked if most people had to go to rebuildables in India, as an example. One of the questions in the chat.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you, Kevin.
Jennifer asked if she was wondering if most people had to go into rebuildable products. They had to do it for themselves mostly.
In India, after the ban? Well, 2 things happened after the ban. One is that some people who had recently switched, who were not that sold on vaping. I mean, they were still in the experimental phase, which all of us have been. It took me almost 1.5 to 2 years to completely make the switch. And everyone has phases. So when they talk about dual use, I mean, come on, is there no dual use with other NRT products? Or, I mean, it's a phase. You look at it, don't just see it as a snapshot, see it over a spectrum, whether they were able to transition. So people who had recently switched and did not have a network or did not know enough people where they could get their devices or liquids from, they went back to smoking. And that's huge negative public health outcome that you're pushing people back to smoking. I mean, how does that help anyone? And the second group of people continued because the bans don't mean much.
Right.
When this airport ban came, when they started banning, when you couldn't carry your vapes through flights, then people got a bit creative because you couldn't carry pods, right? Because they are battery and they know that these are pods. So that's when people started, carrying the mod separately in the, carry on and putting everything else in the check-in. People will find ways still, or ship it to their location where they are going and then get it. So, there's always been more rebuildables in India right from the beginning because Juul never formally launched and pods are not that big a thing. So mostly rebuildables.
So they've kind of kept Juul or pods out of the system completely, it seems.
Yeah, and Juul everything actually started. I mean the decline of the situation went to shit faster when Juul announced that it wants to launch in India because that's when
you said
2015, right? It spooked the tobacco monopoly in the country because Juul had huge success in the West, in US, where it captured 70% of the pod market in under 2 years, right? So for a tobacco company in India, that's really scary, and that's when the screws started turning on faster, and the ban came like really quickly.
Yeah, the overnight thing kind of shocked the hell out of me. That's not good. That's not good. So if you have the ability to, with your organization, say you can use snus. Somebody, I don't know. Yolanda said that she smokes like a train with patches. So you could use a patch when you're traveling. Other nicotine alternatives are still available, and people don't know for me, I vaped. I couldn't use the patch or gum. It didn't do anything for me either. And I never knew, and they didn't tell you in the 80s and the 90s when I tried the patch that you could smoke with it. Now they're telling you can't. So that's dual use. Kind of ironic that you can now dual use with those, but if you do it with this, it's bad. If you do it with a patch or gum, it's okay. So I find
this is the problem with medicalization of device of solutions in the 70s or the 80s, in the beginning 80s, when these products, nicotine gums, and were launched or were invented. There were the same arguments. In fact, there was an additional argument that how are you selling nicotine in a kid's product, which is a chewing gum? Right. So all that opposition was there. I mean, there was opposition. How can nicotine be an answer to nicotine dependence?
Right.
What the effect that had was that pharmaceutical companies started making the products less and less effective so as not to run up against this opposition. So that is why you have really small doses of nicotine, which doesn't work that well, and like really weird flavors. Now they're beginning to launch in flavors and patches, which people don't know how much they need, because if you're used to inhaling your nicotine, how do you know how much to ingest?
Right.
So yeah, that is the problem with medicalization. And if you try to do it with vaping, it's again not going to work. So Bloomberg may think he has a great idea, but it's not going to work.
It's not going to work. Well, I wish him luck, but it's not going to work. I wish him luck all the way to the bank where his account is zero. So, and you can't tell me that he doesn't probably, not he specifically, but all of his accounts in the world don't invest in tobacco stocks. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, that too. That too. I mean, when the ban was coming in India, or when it was, imminent that, or people were talking about it seriously, the same tobacco control groups were assuring that we will never ban cigarettes, the tobacco farmers. So India is also the second largest producer of tobacco, right? It's linked to a lot of livelihoods, and it's a big issue here. So these tobacco control groups were assuring these farmers, your livelihood will not be affected with this vape ban. And how wrong on message are you? I mean, what is it that you actually want?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just want a ban on vaping, and that's it.
They're tending their crops.
Union, which is a major Bloomberg grantee, recently proposed that let's ban vaping and H&B and in low and middle income countries, but not in the West. Now, in a world where we are talking about equality and less discrimination, here is a tobacco control NGO which is proposing such a discriminatory policy, and everyone is like, okay, yeah, maybe let's think about that.
Yeah, because they're not worried about the smokers.
These things should not be able to be said in a world like ours today. That let's increase the health inequalities in the world. Let one group of people, especially those in the West, have access to safer alternatives. But those in poorer nations, where actually harm prevention is even more important, let's take it away from them.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about, obviously during this COVID time, everybody's concerned about vaccine, and where do you think that they're testing those vaccines?
Mm-hmm.
In low income countries and small, and I said it last week, they're going to test it on all the black and brown people before they give it to us.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can go in, WHO can go in and say, hey, here's a promising vaccine from the Gates Foundation, or from any of these other people. We're going to give it to you because we care about you. But if anybody asks, well, why aren't you giving it to America, or why aren't you giving it to the UK, or why aren't any of these other people using this yet?
Well, we want to make sure you don't die. Fuckers.
So, let's give it to the poor people, the uneducated, the people that don't have anybody to stand up for them, and test it on them.
If it doesn't work, everybody's going to be quiet. And if it does work, we're heroes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Fuckheads.
Well, Gates Foundation has been in serious shit in India too. I mean, I think about 5-6 years ago they tried to mass test this vaccine on kids, and they just bought an entire state department which was working for them directly, as in it was staffed by Gates people, and then of course there's a lot of pressure on the government that how is it that you're letting this happen, which is when they closed it down. But yeah, I mean, you're right on that.
Oh, he's
So
right.
yeah, I mean, let's ban it here and watch people die. Let's test this vaccine out and watch people die, or be born with two heads or whatever that these vaccines are going to do.
Vaping is a vaccine to tobacco use, right? But you're not going to see it that way, of course, because if you did, I mean, look at how many lives you could save if all 1 billion smokers or tobacco users shifted to less harmful products. It is a vaccine. It's going to save lives.
And the tobacco control game of the end of smoking keeps moving, or they change the dates on me every time I look at it. It was 2025, which is a joke. Smoking will never ever go away, but it can be very quickly reduced if they shut the hell up for 5 seconds or speak the truth, which is what you're doing with INNCO and what's the other one?
AVI.
AVI. Thank you. that is what you're doing, and you're able to have people reach out to you guys. Hopefully, they do as much as they can. So we're on the right side of history. Period. If we weren't. And I'm assuming you do the same thing I do as a consumer. I look for the bad. I look for the worst parts of any study that I can understand, or I ask someone. There's a few select people that I go, hey, is this what I think it means before I open my mouth? Or is this really bad? Like Dr. Farsalinos discussed formaldehyde. And there were people that didn't like that. When he tells us something we don't want to hear, some people get angry. Well, shut up and listen to him. We need to know that shit. We need to be in front of it before anybody else is, period. Because I want to know if this is just as harmful. And I've still been waiting for somebody to tell me it's just as harmful. So I'm good. But I'm still looking for it for everybody else around the world, just like everybody else around the world is looking for it for me. Oh crap, this is bad. Cinnamon, I think, was the culprit in that specific thing. Well, okay, so let's find an alternative to make it less dangerous. And if the idiots who are trolling us that do listen, because they do, are actually trying to help the world, they would look for these things too in the proper way and make the answers available to everybody. So, and Bruni said if ants...
You chased him away, Kevin.
Chased him away. If ants would just go back to being ants as they were. I love Bruni. So they're doing in India what they're doing everywhere else.
Yep.
A big blanket of bullshit. What were you doing?
I'm not feeling too great right now.
Oh, okay. Don't give it to me.
I'm going to send it to you over the interwebs.
No. And Paul said if he doesn't have nicotine, no beer. Don't call me.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I like that one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, we lost Samrat.
Yeah.
He may not be feeling very good either. I don't know. He just disappeared.
And I don't remember who offhand. I think his name was John. Asked about secondhand vapor, and I gave him a few links, and I can't find the question now on the chat.
It might have fallen off.
Yeah, but I did send links, and forgive me not remembering for sure the name, but friend me on Facebook. I'll send you those links. Because he couldn't.
Well, there he is. He's back.
Yeah.
So yeah,
he had to go to the bathroom.
We were talking about the stunning slew of people with INNCO. So, along
Yeah,
with
and the governing board are all unpaid volunteers. It's not that we draw salaries. We just believe in what INNCO does and the potential it has of doing a lot more. We are helping African organizations stand up, because what's happening in Africa is what a lot of us have already gone through. Is when these antis start getting into the game, start spreading misinformation. I mean, nicotine pouches, they are equivalent in harm. So they're just a pouch, a tobacco-free pouch with nicotine in it. It's equivalent in harm to an NRT. And they're talking about NRTs will kill, nicotine pouches will kill. And why aren't you saying that about NRTs? I mean, it's the same nicotine delivered in the same way.
That's government approved.
No tobacco in it.
That's government approved nicotine, sir. So it's okay.
Yeah, so it's like my nicotine versus your nicotine, right? I mean, how logical is that? It's the same chemical. It's the same substance.
The exact substance.
They're beginning to get active, and we are trying to help the African organizations stand up to that, because it's an environment where they can drive change because if they act now. Because in countries where bans have come, it will take a while to shift course. But where the conversation is beginning to pick up, it's good to be part of that. In Latvia, for example, they're considering a ban on nicotine pouches. We're trying to do some work there. The European Commission, the SHEAR report was out recently, and we're trying to file a submission on that. In Australia, I think that this new committee can do wonders. We will make a submission to that. So yeah, we're trying to inject the consumer voice in these discussions where consumers have not been heard from before. Because what works, we are living these experiences. You're pointing out that this Cochrane review, which has come out. I mean, we ex-smokers have known this for a while, having tried NRTs and they didn't work, and vaping worked. We know vaping is way more effective than NRTs, but science is catching up on that right now, and it's good. I mean, and more of this stuff will keep happening. And I mean,
well, if they're lying about this, and now they're caught, will they ever admit it?
WHO kept saying there is not enough evidence that vaping helps people quit smoking. The Australian organizations have been saying, "Oh, we don't know whether they help." Come on,
So if it doesn't help us quit smoking, leave us alone. That's what I say.
I do. I mean, I know for a fact that the American youth vaping epidemic has been quoted in several countries as a justification for a ban in a different country. Were they quoting American youth epidemic? They have an epidemic in America, so we have to deal with that here.
So that single bit of information, or that misrepresentation of the situation, has led to bans across the world, or led to negative pushback and prohibitions and restrictions across the world. In India, when there was a parliament debate on the issue, the health minister stood up and said, kids are dying in US because of EVI, and the fact that there is a teen epidemic in the US, and that's isn't enough for us to ban it. But why is that epidemic only in the US, and why are we not seeing it across the world? Or why is it surely not there in the UK? Of course, because they're not recording 30-day ever use, right? They're recording how many teens are dependent on vaping, and that number is so low that you don't want to talk about it. So yeah, a lot of what happens in the US, obviously, I mean, not just vaping, everything impacts the world, but on vaping, your glance has done more harm to the world than, I suppose, any other individual.
It's clickbait switch. That's what I've been calling it.
Clickbait. I mean, and despite being called out so many times, if it was any other scientist, they would just be banned from producing more research.
Yeah, I mean, he's worth about $2 billion a year to California. So California universities and California itself. So he's too big of a money. They would take a financial hit if they really went against him.
Yeah, he also has developed this coterie, this following of fans who are also influential in other countries. For example, his work, one of which was retracted, is part of the white paper, which was the basis of the ban in India. He goes to Thailand, and the biggest anti-vapor bureaucrat in Thailand is his follower in that sense. So yeah, he's also seeded a lot of these experts who it's not just about him, it's also about these people he's brainwashed. So it's bigger than that. But he's not with UCSF anymore, right? So I mean, does that impact the work he's going to do?
He's going to complete any science that or anything that he's started. But because of him, there's a constitutional amendment in the California Constitution that gives UCSF like $700 million a year. So even when he's gone, that constitutional amendment stays. So yeah, I mean, he could. I mean, obviously, there's been all sorts of misconduct and sexual harassment claims made against him. All of that gets swept aside because of the amount of money he brings to the university.
Okay.
So yeah, I said about corruption earlier, but it also works in American universities.
Yeah, but if you link that money to the amount of people's lives he's put at risk, it's still not. I mean, someone should do an assessment of how much harm Glantz and his work have caused globally, and put some figures to that influence, and that would be horrific. That one person can put so many lives in danger.
Yep. I mean, and this is a guy. He's a mechanical engineer. He's not a medical doctor.
Hailing out of the University of Cincinnati for part of that.
I mean, you see him on. There's been interviews where they're talking about, well, why should people believe anything that you say? And he's like, well, I'm a rocket scientist. He's an actual rocket scientist. That's what he said. Well, then why are you talking about public health?
Yeah, I think he found a niche and it paid him a lot, and then he just went on with it.
Yeah.
But there has to be some public accountability for what you're doing, and the impact it's having in America, of course, but also globally.
Yeah. Well, I know. I mean, we talked about Australia and New Zealand, but back in, I believe, September of October of last year, he's on TV in New Zealand, pushing for anti-vaping legislation in New Zealand. So if anybody believes that just because he left UCSF that he's gone, I said this in another show, and somebody's like, "Oh, I challenge him to come to my country, and I'll citizens arrest him." I'm like, and he's like, if he gets cross-examined, no, it's not a court trial. He's going on TV. He's going and talking to legislators, and he's not testifying in court.
He'll be a consultant for the rest of his life.
Yeah,
and he's training people into that prohibitionist thinking, who are then going back to their countries and becoming key part of tobacco control in their countries. So he wields a lot of influence that way, and this whole thing is a network. It's a very well connected and funded network of people. I mean, Bloomberg is funding all that, but there are also people who are coming from these kind of schools of thought, and of course, they get rewarded for it.
Well, you have to understand, if you're going to go into tobacco control, you have to lie, you have to hate, and you have to tax. Those are the three rules. In any order, doesn't matter. Lie, hate, and tax. Those are the three things you must do.
And give a shit about smokers, the people that you're claiming to represent.
Yeah.
We have these Voice of Tobacco Users organization in India, which keeps calling for higher tax. And I'm saying, if you're really representing users, why would you be doing that? Why would you be against your own constituency, knowing full well that in India cigarettes are sold loose? So if you increase the price of a product, there's always a cheaper product to go to, but that cheaper product is going to cause more harm. So how is it helping? I mean, taxes. I'm not against them entirely on sin tax.
And when they call it a sin tax, they get to hate a smoker. But when they say it's because we're getting those tobacco people, they're not getting those tobacco people. They're getting the people they're allegedly helping. Exactly. I never figured any of this shit out until after I stopped smoking. But holy crap, what a racket! It's a huge.
See, I think that's why vaping has completely upended their model. Because before vaping, you did not have tobacco users organizing or coming together or fighting for their rights. Now it's a human rights issue. Now we want a seat at the table because we want access to something. We want choice. We want also right to health. And they were not used to this setup where consumers are going to come up and challenge the shit that they're spewing. Yep. So it is a reckoning for them where they don't know where they stand because they're suddenly bombarded with lay people. And that is why I think, their first reaction is, oh, you're against us, you must be tobacco industry. But that was 10 years ago. Come on, adapt to the new reality. We are people. It's time you recognize that. So I think they've been slow to adapt to a changed reality. They're slow to adapt to a simple fact that technology has changed everything. Every sphere of life. What was the possibility that technology would not change tobacco use or make it less harmful?
Yep.
How big a leap?
In America, we have.
It's simple, right?
I can't think of what it stands for offhand, but Clash is New York, and I can't think of the lady's name. So that's a smokers' rights group. So there's been at least two that I can remember offhand, Clash, and I don't know the other one. On a vaping level, I've asked this on Twitter, where are all my patch and gum enthusiasts? I've never seen that ever. And if it would have worked for me and I had a Twitter back then, maybe I would have done that. But they don't exist that I know of for sure. The heat not burn people are just probably happy they're off of cigarettes, I'm assuming, and it's less harmful. And then everything else is relative. So they get to hate the smokers that are fighting for their rights. They get to pretend that we're smoking because they own the network and they own the media, and then we're still yelling and screaming. So how do we change it? How do we get louder?
We are a large number of people, and we are going to, it's not difficult. We're not selling vaping to anyone because it just works. Yep. If anyone tried it, it would just work for them. So it's not that we are out there. We have a Coca-Cola, which we want people to use, but it's just aerated water. So we need to do a lot of selling for it, right? We're not doing any of that. And the number of vapers will keep growing exponentially, right? Because everyone wants to protect their health. Most people know that smoking is killing them. So, and if they did find something that really works, they would switch to it.
Yeah.
So we have numbers on our side, and it's going to increase over a period of time. And if we started pushing back collectively and also at an individual level, it is going to change the course of things. What you did in US, when this flavor ban was coming, of just telling the government that, okay, we are single issue voters, we will vote against this. And that did, prompt sort of a rethink at the highest levels. That's, to me, one very good way of going is you tell them, yes, we vape, we vote. And So that is one. Second is to connect with the community worldwide, because the more connected we are, more ideas, information we share, and the more globally we look like we are a unit or we are an entity, the more seriously we'll be taken, because you can't ignore that many people.
I mean, what we really need is a World Vape Day every day.
Yeah. Yeah. World Tobacco Day is one day, and then they don't worry about it.
I mean, we, like you said a while ago on World Vape Day, we showed, that we can make some noise, but then the next day, 2 days later, back to normal.
Yeah. I mean, I think if people got involved with their national organizations, and the national organizations did at regular intervals some pushback, also everyone connected to each other, across not just your country but your region, and then globally, that can have an impact. And these are simple actions we can take, because everyone has access to social media. Just follow pages of other vapers, other organizations, retweet their work, or just comment on them, amplify voices, and that doesn't take much. It's not a concerted. You don't have to be investing that much time in it. It's just you wanting to do it, and that will begin to show in whoever is trying to look at the situation that there are a significant number of people whose rights we are trying to deny. And how long are we going to keep doing it without there being a fallout on us?
Mm-hmm. And you said get on Twitter, do what you have to do earlier. Social media is pretty powerful. And I've shared this story more than once, that Dr. Glover, not because of me, I want to make it clear it wasn't because of me. I did a survey, I don't know, probably a year later. Alan Beard said, "Hey, Kev, you just were mentioned at 2 hours, 17 minutes and 38 seconds in this nicotine symposium." And I'm like, what are you talking about? Your survey was mentioned. And Dr. Glover used a quote from the survey. She didn't actually go through the survey, but she quoted it and mentioned my survey. And I was like, wow, I don't know where she was before she saw that, but that made it even better for me. So Dr. Glover was listening to us, and maybe we didn't know it. I certainly didn't at the time. She wasn't really negative, but she wasn't really positive. So I didn't get a lot of interaction with her myself. But she used the one that started vaping, they stopped smoking, they could move mountains or could climb mountains again. And that was pretty big moment for me. I didn't know who she was really, and look who she is now. She kept me quiet for about 2 hours. She kept me on my toes.
That's true.
So yeah, it's not necessarily the people like Glance that are tweeting. It's the people that are reading Glance's tweets and then reading the replies. So I try not to cuss as an example on Twitter very often. I will, and I do, but not very often. And it's more facts. Here's some more facts. Here's some more facts. And it really isn't about the people that are lying. It's the people that are reading behind it. Those are the people you want to talk to. And we do change minds. They do get it. So
yeah, and Twitter is one platform, but it's also Instagram. It's also Facebook. It's also LinkedIn, for that matter. We can be cross-platform and engage with different audiences in different ways. Twitter is great for advocacy, yes, to reach out to authorities, but to also speak to the people, because more people begin to see the benefits of THR, the wider base we have.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick, you were saying something.
Oh, I don't remember. No, I mean, basically, yeah. I mean, we have to figure out ways to make World Vape Day the type of impact that we made on World Vape Day every day.
And I would let you in on something.
To keep people passionate and willing to spend 3 minutes on Twitter every day.
I think that's.
I mean, 3 minutes.
Yep.
Follow people. I mean, literally, a lot of people, like, I have difficulty editing myself because I type in way more words than I'm allowed, and I end up having to edit myself and then re-edit myself and then finally get it down to the correct number of characters, and that does take a moment. So not everybody can spend 10 minutes crafting one tweet, but you can follow people and you can retweet people and you can quote over a tweet and add stuff to other people's tweets. And we need to do this literally every day. When we get on in the morning, what I normally do is I hit a couple other people's feeds every day. You know, I look at Kevin, I see what Kevin did. I look at Demetrius, I see what Demetrius did. I might check in on INNCO, or I might check on Factasia or Henage, you know, or other people. And I see, oh, okay, this is what they're doing today. Let me retweet that. Takes a minute just to scan and hit retweet.
Just retweet.
Sometimes the algorithms on Twitter don't favor me, and I miss tweets. So, yeah, I go and I check people's feeds. The handful of people that I know always have good advocacy tweets, because I don't tweet anything on Twitter. I don't use Twitter for anything but that. My Twitter feed is this show and advocacy. So once in the entire time that I've had Twitter, I posted a picture of meat on a grill just to mess with Paul. But otherwise it's advocacy.
You can literally do almost anything you want to with it. If your tweet inspires me to tweet, that doesn't mean I'm going to give you credit, but I may or may not. And there's nothing wrong, in my opinion, that you can say or do. There's still what Amanda said months ago. We have zero to lose, period, all the way across the world or around the world. Or
nothing left to lose.
Nothing left to lose. Zero.
Yeah. You're blurry again, and it's not my glasses.
Well, I'm old, so it may be the...
Yeah, imagine if our tweets had like 500 likes. That itself is a lot of power. So like you were saying, Patrick, even if you're not writing, or you can just reply to tweets, even if you just liked or retweeted, that itself is powerful because it amplifies voices. It also encourages those people to be more active. And we also build a community, where we respond to each other. For example, if something is happening in another country and we chip in, it makes the voice bigger. For example, what's happening in Australia. If everyone sent in a submission, and if they got like 5,000 submissions or across the world, that itself is a lot of, that's people speaking up.
Yep.
Or the sheer report, which we are responding to. Or if or the Mexico situation. If you just engage with each other and in country too, that can have a lot of influence.
Mexico.
That's how we speak as people.
Little things like this. Obviously, we all know that Parents Against Vaping is it's a lost cause. Really, they're not going to change their mind, but they continuously tweet stupid stuff like this that gives us an opportunity to show how stupid they actually are. So, this is the tweet. In 2019, Juul Vapor boasted it had abandoned flavors to discourage youth use. Latest, what is it? This is New York Times survey. Figures show 37% of teen e-cig users choose menthol flavor. Based on its own logic, shouldn't Juul withdraw its menthol PMTA? So, I feel like I have to respond to this because, these are, obviously Troop is my friend. Troop has responded. His tweet is awesome, but it doesn't really, in my mind, really point out the problem here. So I figured I would point out the problem for them. And I said, I think the ask should be directed to convenience stores where Juul is sold, tobacco control, local, state, and federal, who are supposed to enforce existing laws that restrict these products from minors, and you, the parents versus vaping, how so many of these kids are getting these products, because it's illegal for them to own them or possess them or use them. Don't blame the product, blame the person that sells them, the person that's supposed to enforce the laws, and you, the parents, who are supposed to actually do your job and look over your kids and make sure that they're not doing things that they're supposed to be doing. Literally, that is the solution to this problem. Not banning this product or restricting access to this product to adults. It's already illegal for kids to have them. So instead of banning the product, talk to the people in charge of actually preventing this from happening and blame them.
Like parenting is an action verb? What?
Parenting is an action verb. You actually have to watch your kids and teach them and, help them make good choices.
No. And a bastard batshit crazy is a drinking word as of right this minute.
It is now, yeah.
That
you could also, when you're replying to these tweets, and if you're sure that someone can come in with more information, you just tag them so that they know that this tweet happened, or share the tweet with them in DM so that they can respond. So no such bullshit goes unanswered. I mean, or we can all come together and just let them know that this was tweeted. Would you like to respond? Or just in your tweet, just tag someone who can come in and then respond to it, and then tag someone who can come in and respond to it. So the more facts are there on that lie, more people are going to read it and then see, okay, this is what they are talking about.
And a counterpoint to that, and there's asshat Patrick showing his meat. So the counterpoint to what some call piling on, if they're being a dumbass, they're being a dumbass. But if you have a professional and you see the thread is already on its way to being a good thread, I pause and I think, is there something I can add to this, or are they already doing something on their own? Like, as an example, if Jim McDonald is already engaged with them 6 times, they don't need me to show a dumbass tweet, you're an idiot or whatever I'm thinking I'm going to say, because it defeats the purpose completely. Because again, the reader that's reading the tweet, not the original person, is normally not going to change their mind anyway, but the context in which it's read from that point on, and then some dumbass like Vaping It comes in, me, and goes, well, yeah, but here's this, you dumb fuck. So you got to be kind of aware of who's above you before you tweet it. And again, algorithms are funny. Sometimes you'll just see the one tweet and you'll just have a reaction. So what do you do? What the hell is that?
That's philanthro-colonialism. That's what he was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
This is what they do. Is the highly educated, rich, fancy, famous people. They go to these third world countries and they say ban vapes, and these people over here who are cashing the check, donations. That's the philanthro part. They say yes, master.
Yep, money.
Now, and I didn't make this, but I think it. I was scrolling through my own Twitter and I was like, oh yeah, I retweeted this. This is something that we need to go. And I mean, obviously, our good friend Charles is the one that retweeted this, or I don't know if he created it or not, but yeah, I mean, we need to realize that they've weaponized public health. That's what they've done. We talk about all the time how how they've monetized smokers' deaths, but they've actually weaponized public health. They go into a country that doesn't have anything and says, we'll give you something if you do this for us.
Yep.
Control. That's what they want.
Yeah, and solutions have to be adapted to the region or the place where you want to, use them. What may work in one region may not work in another. And the other problem, I think they're not, evil in that sense that they actually want to ruin the world. It's just that they have the wrong ideas based on wrong facts and wrong understanding of the situation. And of course, like you pointed out, a little control on things. They want to shape the world the way they want to see it, rather than make the world a better place. And this is the root cause of problem, where they want things done their way. And that's effective.
We have a thing here, and I don't know if you have it in India, but we have this thing here we call the nanny state. The government wants to be your mommy and daddy. They want to make your choices because they don't feel like you are smart enough to make your own choices. I mean, I don't
see. A recent example of that was in India. They have banned cigarette breaks in offices during this pandemic period. And how is that going to help? I mean, that's just stigmatizing smokers further, creating a division in the office, making it difficult for employers to implement something like that, and putting smokers at more risk, because now they're going to lie to their employers, go further away from office, and put themselves more at risk. So that's nanny stating.
We talk about this. We've been talking about this for a long time, about the demonization and certain language choices that we use, and you brought it up earlier. You used the word earlier, but we as Americans, at least in America, certain words that don't have a derogatory meaning have become derogatory. So obviously, we use the word addict. Now, when you say the word addict, it brings a mental image of an addict, and it's usually like, in the late 80s, they had Calvin Klein had this whole ad campaign that looked like a whole bunch of heroin junkies, skinny, pale, scruffy looking, undesirable people. The drug addict. That's what you think in your head. You see the comedian. What's his name? There's a comedian that there's a meme and a GIF, and it's a homeless guy that's a drug addict, always looking for drugs, and that's part of the comedy sketch. But we've demonized these people. We've used this. We've reconceptualized or redefined what words mean. It's smokers. Since the 1960s, we've separated from them. We've made them other than us. They're different. We don't like them. They have to go over there. Go over there. Don't come over here because you smoke. You're a smoker. And we've turned these people into pariahs. And obviously, because we do something that looks similar to what they're doing, we're also pariahs, when we should be embracing these people and saying, you know what, we love you. We don't want you to die. Here's some information about a harm reduction miracle that could save your life. That's what these governments should be doing. But no. You're a smoker. You have to go over there. You're not part of us. You're one of them. We don't like what you do. You stink. You're evil. Your children are going to die because you're a smoker. All this stuff is negative. It's hate filled. It's you're different than us, so we don't like you. Which is a completely bigger dialogue that's happening all over the world, but just not about us. It's about other things. We have a xenophobic president. So You know, that whole discussion about the fear of other or the dislike of other is welcome in most circles now, except when it comes to this. They've even embraced drug addicts now and are allowing for safe injection sites and needle exchanges. That's harm reduction that they've embraced. I mean, even if you go into handing out condoms at schools, that's harm reduction. Seat belts in cars, that's harm reduction. But our airbags in cars, harm reduction. But us, no. You're an addict and you're undesirable and irredeemable. That's the language that they use. I mean, literally, that's what they're pushing.
You know, you're pointing out about drugs and harm reduction. I mean, look at the failed drug wars, how much destruction it has caused. And now...
But that's lucrative.
But the tide has changed, you know, as in now there is recognition of the agency of the drug user, of respect for that person, of making them part of policy making. If you look at the United Nations guidelines on drugs policy, they're really inclusive. They talk about harm reduction, they talk about inclusion, they talk about working with the users, they talk about not stigmatizing them. But that thinking has not translated into tobacco harm reduction. And that is one of our efforts at INNCO, and I suppose everyone is indirectly working towards that, is that while harm reduction is so central now to drugs policies, why are they not in tobacco use, which impacts a lot more people, causes a lot more harm, in terms of mortality and morbidity. So, but I suppose, there were young people dying, whereas in tobacco use, what you have is premature deaths. So the visuals are not that gripping, but it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope, down the line, the learnings from the drug wars and the failed drug wars and how to deal with those situations translates into tobacco use. And that's what we are all asking. That's what we are talking about. We are talking about a concept which is already really well established. It's not new. It's just that it's not established, like you said, in our field. And that's what we are fighting for.
Right.
Yeah, so you talk about our imagery is not that shocking. So I actually well, back in August, I did a series of tweets to our orangutan in chief, the Cheeto in chief, about how damaging smoking is. And I purposefully chose shocking images. That. And there was 3 of them. To show people, obviously, it's the president of the United States. He doesn't really respond to my tweets very much or ever. But, in this tweet got retweeted 28 times. It got 43 likes. This one got 18 retweets and 31 likes. And this one, 12 retweets, 12 likes. This is, as far as I'm concerned, this is the most serious version of our message. Just in America, hey, this is what you are responsible for, Donald Trump, if you allow FDA tobacco to kill vaping industry with the current PMTA pathway. 480,000 smokers dying every year, gasping for breath. Crushing innovative solutions to public health tragedy kills people. These are obviously not all of our messages can be like that, but we need to hit these people with the real harsh reality of what their choices, their decisions as legislators are going to, end up with. These are the results of your bad legislation, of your bad policy. People are going to die, and this is what it looks like.
See David's comment.
Yeah, this is the weirdness of it all. That we people are talking about these images, or we are the ones who are talking about the harms of smoking. Whereas WHO released a series of ads around World No Tobacco Day showing kids vaping. You're using kids and showing them vaping. If that is not renormalizing or normalizing vaping for kids, then what is? You're using them as pawns in your ideological war. And you've completely shifted focus from something which is causing that many deaths to something which would be preventing those deaths. So, yeah, it sometimes feels like we are the public health and we are fighting authorities to save lives. And that should not be. How crazy is that? That we people have to fight our governments or our authorities or these clutch of NGOs to save lives.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through my old tweets. I'm looking for one specific thing, and I'm finding some really nice ones that could be reused. I also am a big fan of recycling stuff because so I'm not that smart. Sometimes I just need to use stuff that I already used.
Samrat, did you?
Maybe to your audiences, I would say that if you want to follow what's happening in India in terms of legislation and work we are doing, then our Twitter handle is Vape India. So @sign.
I didn't put that on the banner.
That's all right. If I saw a bunch of people follow me on my account, and that's when I realized.
Yeah, Samrat, and he actually is pretty smart because his tweets are really sharp.
Yes, I just put them in there again. Did you trust? It's a side note. Did you trust what you knew and heard in public health before you quit smoking as opposed to after?
See, of course, I don't think smokers hate tobacco companies the way tobacco control does. That's one big difference between us and them. So but being a journalist, of course, there was a lot of anti-tobacco company news that if you're a journalist, you're part of that. One big change that happened was I did realize that tobacco companies are not necessarily the problem, because for them vaping is another product. If I'm selling Coke, I'm okay to sell Diet Coke also down the line. Or any other sugary drink in that. So if it's a nicotine consumer product, they will sell it. Mm-hmm. Of course, when it's a state-owned company, then there is less motivation to innovate and compete, and that's a different thing. But in a general market, if these products really took off and this is what people wanted, they would provide them. They are businesses at the end of the day. So I did realize that, and also look at it this way, that if we want to make these products widely available at price points that people can afford, who's going to do it? You need industry. You need also small entrepreneurs because you want competition in the market. You don't want oligopolies. You don't want just 4-5 players and really strict barriers to entry so that there is no competition, which means that there is no motivation to innovate, and also prices go up. So, you need competition. You need industry participation. I think that was one big change, and it took me a while to realize that because, I was steeped in this anti-big tobacco thinking. I'm not giving them a green shit of any sort. I'm not saying that they didn't break every rule in the book and twist all rules that they could. But here we are, and it is technology which reshaped the environment. Mm-hmm. So, let's adapt to the new reality.
I've said this before. I'll say it again. With the exception of Kevin, because he's old, there is nobody in this room that I can think of. There might be somebody that's Kevin age or older, but most people that are like big tobacco lied to us. They blah blah blah. Were born after the Surgeon General's report in the United States. Obviously, the The Brits beat us by a couple years. Everybody here, probably the first pack of cigarettes that they stole from their parents or they picked up at the convenience store, had a label on the side of it that said, "This will kill you," or "can kill you." They never lied to us. We knew, and we still made that choice.
Yeah.
So obviously, a company is going to do everything possible to make money, even one that makes a product that kills 50% of the people that use them as directed. I mean, there are a lot of products out there that kill people by accident. But this product kills people, and they know it's going to do it. They put a label on the side of it. It's going to kill you.
And they just collect the tax. That's all.
And the government taxes that product more than any other product. It's got a sin tax or whatever. But yes, people, everybody that's probably less than 60 or 70 knew that cigarettes were bad for you. Period. So yes, the tobacco company are not our friends. They're not our buddies. They are not above, killing us in the marketplace, because that's what they do. They're big, huge monster corporations. They crush competition. But in this sort of world, I mean, we have to realize that sometimes when our vaping advocates go to the state capitals, go to the nation's capital, whatever, there are and have been times that their lobbyists side with us.
Yeah.
And that we have to grudgingly side with them. And they're going to push tax bills that promote their products and crush us, because that's what business is a fucking about.
Mm-hmm.
But by and large, I've heard this argument. I've heard this argument a couple times. Well, we don't know what they're going to put in their big tobacco vapes. Of course we do.
I said that.
You actually believe that they're as scrutinized as they are, that they're going to try to sneak something in? No, they're putting
they are under bigger scrutiny than any other product manufacturer, right? So
yes,
they're more tightly controlled than any other industry.
They have if you see the Reynolds Scientific Lab in Geneva, Switzerland, it looks like a fucking spaceship. They've spent so much money on their science center. They have like 400 full-time scientists working there. I mean, there's no way. I mean, they are not going to try to sneak some sort of hyper addictive chemical other than nicotine, which is not hyper addictive, by the way, at all. I mean, Kevin's seen the film. I haven't seen the film, but I'm quite sure, without even seeing that film, that my science over here on this computer proves the fact that fucking nicotine is not heroin. 4 years ago,
Jerry said it was. Jerry said
4 years ago, Time magazine put right on the cover, vaping is more addictive than heroin. And they used we talk about obviously dripping. Dripping.
The upside down.
They compared dripping to freebasing.
I want the record to show, if Ed's still here, Ed is older than me, and big tobacco is not the thing.
But
we need
Ed has admitted in the chat room that the first pack of cigarettes that he bought had a warning label on it.
Yeah, but it was like 1952 or something, maybe.
No, Bruni's that old, probably. I mean, I don't know.
Bruni's not that old. Bruni's like 40.
He just looks like he's 100. He's lived a hard life.
It's the beard.
This is what I also point out. While on one hand they say incorrectly that nicotine is more addictive than heroin, on the other hand, they don't treat nicotine dependent people the same as they would. Would you go to a heroin addict and say, "Hey, why don't you quit?" And that's all you got.
No, they say, "Here's some methadone.
Here's some heroin."
Obviously, right? So you would you would not imagine saying that to a heroin user. But to a nicotine user, they would say, hey, quitting on your own is the best. So where is there no dissonance in that? On one hand, you're saying it's more addictive, and the other hand, you're not even providing them, means or effective means to do so, or trying to restrict it in a way that they find it more difficult to get.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it goes back.
It all boils down to being an ideological war. There is, if you talk about science, it just doesn't work in their favor. So, you have this kids argument, and then, that's the one which stuck, because I've been following this happening since 2015 very seriously. And, there would be an argument from them, and the vaping community would push back, and they would realize, oh, this doesn't work. So they'll come up with a new one, and then there will be a pushback. Oh, this doesn't work. And so this kids argument is such an emotional one, and they know it's going to resonate with, people who are not interested in the story.
Well, we've been experiencing a perfect storm when it comes to that youth the youth epidemic thing. So first, this is, this youth epidemic dialogue did not start yesterday. I did shows in 2014 talking about the youth epidemic. Before the big boom in vaping, they were already saying that we're going after the kids. Obviously, the number one marketer of vapor products to the youth is Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, and the FDA itself with their the Real Cost campaign.
Under their direction.
Well, they're paying for it. It's their campaign.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have editorial control over that campaign. So it's their fucking campaign. And they show pictures, like you were saying, Sam. They show pictures of kids smiling, having a good time with a fucking e-cigarette in their hand. So kids who have a very short attention span, I'm an adult and I have a very short attention span. Kids see a photograph of kids, other kids, having fun vaping
with puppets.
And they're hanging up at schools all over the United States.
Their big argument is that Juul did kids marketing, right?
Juul never marketed to kids.
Yeah, but their big argument is that, right? Their argument is that Juul somehow lured kids by looking at pics and got them to vape. You're doing the same thing. And if the kids knew the difference between your marketing and their marketing, then they would not be vaping in the first place. So, using kids, there should be laws against that. And I feel quite emotionally about this. Don't use our kids in your fucking ideological war. There, I said it.
Good man. Good man.
You got the F-bomb in there. Did you see that? I'm so proud of him.
No, but that I feel really enraged.
I think Hennage owes me money now.
Using children in as pawns in your war. I mean, that you can't go lower than that.
Yeah, I mean, and these
behind him, hiding behind children is what they.
Yeah, do. I mean, this is a human shield. That's what they're doing, and they've been doing it. It's the tactic that they've used for years. If you listen to the intro of the show, I have sound clips of U.S. legislators using this is the same war that we've been fighting. This is and they're using the same playbook, and they're getting away with it. They are unwilling to recognize any of our science. This is in America we have a two-party system. We have other parties, but we have a two-party system. The Democrats are the liberals here, and they claim to be the party of science. They're the party of science in any global warming conversation. When it comes to public health, when it comes to COVID, they're the party of science. Here we are. Here's science showing vaping as a harm reduction miracle. Oh no, that science is not good. No. That's like the Republicans when they deny any climate change science. So they're not the party of science. They're the party of ideology. And so is the Republicans are ideologues as well. It's just different ideology, different topics. Yes, Hennig owes me money because I got you to say the F-bomb, and he said he wouldn't do that.
Yeah, he told me that there was something like that going on.
Somebody tag him.
Kids issue, I really feel that children should not be used because they're our children too, right? They're not your. I mean, you don't have a claim on all kids on earth. They're our children too. And when I see our kids being misused, I do feel strongly about that because, you're abusing us, your right over them or your agency over them because you're perhaps their parents or
the nanny state.
Yeah. So that is really low, as far as I think you talk on ideas, we can have a debate, but don't use kids or abuse them for work like this, and that's really, and I think the Democrats in US have fallen for that. I mean, I wish this was not politicized in the US, but, as things are, a lot of things get politicized in the US. Yeah. And as you said, Democrats are usually pro-science, but in this case, I think the emotional hook has gotten to them, coupled with the fact that they are generally anti-industry. I don't know. Maybe those two things are coming together.
No, I think it's just that they're looking for talking points. They have election cycles every 2 years here, so the Senate is the senators are looking for something that they can use as a feather in their cap for their campaign. Look, I fought for your kids. And destroyed this evil demon vaping. And I mean, that is literally all this is for them.
Yeah. So now your kids can safely smoke. And, because you can't stop the young people from experimenting. And, I think this is true for all of us that we started when we were young. We did not fully realize how serious or what was the addictive potential of that product. By the time we really wanted out, or some of us didn't, it was already too late and we were hooked and we just adapted to that lifestyle. If I have friends, who when they saw their kids smoking, recommended that if you are going to do this, you should not. If you're still going to do it, you'd rather vape because at least you'll be causing less harm to your body. And as you pointed out earlier, it is less addictive. So at a point that you did want to go out of it, you had better scope or chance of doing that. So, everything being equal, a less harmful product should never be restricted on all counts. I mean, are kids not able to buy cigarettes? Of course they can. So why would you want to, restrict something less harmful?
Yeah. Well, they don't want anybody to know that it's less harmful, though.
Yeah, but they won't be able to keep a lid on this for too long, because we are in 2020. The tobacco companies could hide the fact that cigarettes cause cancer, but that was in the 60s, right? We are 60 years later. There are better mechanisms. More research is going to come out over a period of time. They can keep denying it, but as evidence builds up, and how do we know that it works? Because we know it from our bodies. I mean, when I was smoking, I was on a different health plane than I am now. So I know, I mean, I don't need science to tell me what I know from my own personal experience. So yes, science will catch up on this, and they can't keep denying forever.
As long as we can get this to happen before everybody that's in this industry gets run out of the industry because of giant expenses of fighting the government, giant expenses to stay open during a pandemic. We had vape shops run out of that were not run out of business by ideology or headlines. We had beaten the EVALI bullshit, and just when people were crawling out of the EVALI hole, here comes COVID. Everybody shut your doors. You can't open your doors. You can't go home and stay at home. And vape shops and these small mom and pop businesses can't pay their bills. They can't pay their leases on their properties. They had to close their doors, and they're not qualifying for help from the government. I think that money's all gone anyway. So, and it doesn't look like there's going to be any more help for these businesses because these dumbasses in Washington D.C. can't agree to at least help, pass a bill to help people.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
When the government refuses to pass a bill to help people.
That is ridiculous, right? I mean, and when we started out in India, we thought initially how difficult is this going to be? There is something which is less harmful. There is a huge tobacco problem. You want people to be able to proactively choose something which is less harmful, because as a government, you cannot provide them healthcare or medical support. So I thought it'll be damn easy, but little did we realize that there is ideology involved, there's money involved, there's a lot of trying to swap some thinking from somewhere else and plant it on another region involved. So yeah, I was personally shocked when India took that direction, because it just does not make any logical sense.
No, I mean, and
there's no argument.
I had a guest on. Oh, we had what was that young lady's name from Canada that we had on the show 2 weeks ago? Kelly. We had Kelly on the show, and we were talking about the Master Settlement Agreement, which is an American. It's not a law. It is a legal agreement between the attorney generals of 46 states and the tobacco companies. And she assumed, or she thought she had read somewhere in there where it talked about the money that goes from the Master Settlement Agreement going into public health funds. There's nothing in the Master Settlement Agreement that tells the states or instructs the states to spend any amount of money on public health, on smoking cessation programs, on education programs.
It says it, I can't do it verbatim, but an intent to reduce youth smoking. That's it. That's as close to health as you can get.
And it still doesn't say how much.
No. Shit, no. Doesn't tell you what they can spend it on, like country clubs and boat ramps.
Yeah, well, the least they could do is that you spend an X percentage of tobacco revenue on helping tobacco users. I mean, that should come naturally, right? I mean, on one hand, you present this as a major problem.
That's the justification that they wrote in there. Due to the fact that your companies have done bad things and have hurt the health of the people of our states, we are suing you and we want some money. But nowhere in there does it say, well, the states will agree to spend 2% of the money collected on public health.
No, there's a suggestion from the CDC.
Well, they do that every year. And out of the 46 states, 2 states actually meet that requested amount.
And then Matt Myers gets to complain and bitch about it, which is a
great
list.
But he was the one who helped negotiate it, right? I mean,
yes.
He was one of the ones, yeah. And the attorney generals of the 46 states, and I brought this up on that show too. Everybody that was involved with that got a payday. Yes. The attorney generals, the 46 attorney generals, there was a big chunk of that money that went to the attorney general's union for litigating that case. The attorneys for the cigarette companies got paid. Legacy and Truth and all these public health organizations that sprang up from the Master Settlement, they got paid. The states got paid. The tobacco companies got paid by way of a guarantee that their products will never be banned.
I just linked Tobacco Free Kids, what they get and what they spend by the state.
Yeah, the report cards by state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every state gets a, and yes, Ed West is going to, stir up trouble by bringing up the Sinar Amendment.
Don't start with me, Patrick.
It's laughable that this comes up because no fucking politician that's in office now knows anything about the Sinar Amendment and will not even bother to look at it.
Markey and Pallone might. I don't know.
Well, they've forgotten by now. They're old
they
and ancient. Their dementia's kicked in and they don't remember what they negotiated.
Briefly, Samrat, it's 80%. Every state has funding tied to it, and they have to complete 80% of the sales, or I'm sorry, 20% of the sales are allowed. Up to 20% of the time, your child could walk into a convenience store and purchase tobacco. As long as they keep them at 20 or below, they get their money, no matter what. So underage sales, now it's 21, is all tied into funding. And it's a 1992, I think, Ed might correct me, 92, I think the Signer Amendment went into effect, and nobody
No,
cared.
Ed says he doesn't know jack about it either. So yeah, so I mean, 20%. The states are allowed to have 20% failure rate on their youth sale stings, and still get funding from the government.
Nobody,
from the federal government.
Nobody, not one fucking top politician has ever responded to me. Not once, ever.
Yeah, they're never going to admit that they negotiated that language.
They're recruiting. That's a recruiting of new smokers, is what that is. Period.
Yeah.
There's nothing else you can say, and they're all going, well, but the kids. So,
yeah. So the not, this has nothing to do with INNCO, and this doesn't have anything to do with Samrat, but I want to remind everybody, and I'm sure Paul is in the chat room. Paul will throw the link. There is currently an open comment period in Australia to go to their nicotine committee. Everybody in the world is allowed to comment and should comment. Because again, we fight for our brothers and sisters all over the world. I'm working on page 3 of my I have a form. I have a letter that I use, and I just tailor it for each one of these. I'm probably going to use my PMTA letter and just change it around a little bit. And I tell everybody that watches the show or listens to the replay, you should have a Word document on your desktop that is an evolving, living document that you can use for every one of these things, and you can tailor it here and there for the specific thing that you're sending it to. You have the skeleton, and all you do is flesh it out for each time you use it. It's a good thing to keep on your computer because you never know when one of these things is going to happen that we're going to need. It's good to put your personal story in there. It's good to throw a little science in there. You're not an expert. There's no reason for you to be throwing a lot of science into it, but here and there, pepper it a little bit if you need to. But yes, it's your story, how nicotine has improved, or how vaping has improved your life. And then, like I said, if it's a flavor comment, you can add a paragraph about flavors and how important flavors are. If it's a public use ban, you can change that paragraph into why it should be allowed in public, blah, blah, blah. And you need to keep that going. You need to keep it on your desktop over the years. I've been doing this for 8 years. That document has evolved and changed as I needed it to. And it's just good to have because you never know. And, a lot of people are like, oh, I have trouble writing. Well, you know what? Microsoft Word has a grammar check and a spell check, and it will fix your grammatical errors, or it will at least make suggestions to you about how to fix your grammatical errors. And they don't have to be perfect.
Nope. If you read my blog, you'd know that.
Oh, yes. Kevin is a horrible typist.
Also, there are organizations which are submitting these submissions.
Mm-hmm.
So you can look at what they have done and just pick up parts that you feel resonate with you, maybe add some personal context. So it isn't that much work. It's a question of getting your submission out, making your voice heard, and letting them know that there are a lot of people concerned and thinking about this.
Right. And we don't want a form letter.
Personalized.
We don't want every letter to be the same, because I'll tell you, when I talk to politicians, when they see a bunch of letters that say exactly the same thing, they all get stapled together, and that's one comment.
Yep.
That's one. I mean, why count that as 20 when it's 20 of the exact same thing? And I will reiterate, I've said this year. I mean, we've done letter writing campaigns. When I was with the Vaping Militia, we did letter writing campaigns. I held online seminars on teaching people how to write fucking letters, because it's important. Because I'll tell you, in an electronic age, when an actual handwritten or printed out letter gets mailed to a politician, that's a big deal. Like that's a concrete thing that they can hold in their hands. An email is easy to delete, is easy to get, filter away. But a real hand-paid or hand-typed letter here in the States, a real letter actually gets put into a folder, and those at the end go to the archives.
I have 2 at the White House.
Yeah.
I didn't hear from either one, but I have
2. But I'm probably on some sort of watch list at the White House. But it's important, guys. I mean, we have to use the tactics that they use against them. This is the thing. I've had politicians tell me to my face, a handwritten letter is the equivalent of like 20 phone calls. Because that means you've made the effort. That means that there might be 20 other people out there that really don't have the time or the energy to write a letter, but you represent more than just yourself when you write a letter.
And it costs you 50 cents or less.
Postage, get some forever stamps. When the price goes up, you still got your forever stamps. So Sam, we're closing in on 3 hours. At the end of the broadcast, we always ask everybody to give some parting thoughts. What do you want to end? What do you want to end on?
Well, I'm happy, and thank you for calling me to this talk. I mean, it's way longer than what I'm used to, but it was we touched on a lot of points, and I'm happy that I could share some insight from outside America. What I feel, I will just reiterate that let's do this together. America leads, of course, in terms of the amount of business and amount of vapors there are. So you guys anyway have a responsibility and of course what comes out of America also impacts, has a lot of impact world over. The EVALI itself caused bans in a few countries, right? Like in the India, ban was linked directly to EVALI. I mean, it created the urgency to impose a ban. And similar conversations began in Asia, and we hear in Latin America, similar conversations. In Europe, Netherlands moved towards a flavor ban, and Denmark, there was a talk about a ban. So what happens in the US does impact globally. And, which also means that vapors, I mean, the sheer number of vapors you have in the US, if they became a little more aware of what's happening around the world and also connected with vapors around the world, and we formed a global community, I think that would help a lot, everyone. I mean, because things are interconnected. What happens with the TPD has an impact on the FCTC. What happens at FCTC does impact America in a way, even though US is not part of it, but it's also not living in isolation. So if we all connected with each other and became one large, forceful global community, it helps everyone.
Kev?
Oh man, I appreciate, because I did not see the video of you guys saying what you were saying and how loud it really is. Patrick was part of that thing in Florida a while back for a virtual rally. That couldn't happen at a rally that went on, and I was on it myself. So the voices and the unity and the lies that they're losing on are important, and the impact that it is having around the world from our side of the earth is going all the way around with Bloomberg and whoever else is in that mess of stupidity with WHO and FCTC, whatever it is. They know they're lying. We know they're lying. It's a matter of time before the children are old enough to know better, and they are old enough to know better. So get on Twitter and follow Samrat. I just threw those in the chat again. It was an absolute pleasure to see you on a live screen, and thank you for what you do and INNCO does. I know a few of the INNCOs. I've known Robert since like 2014, so I'm kind of glad that I knew he was somewhere in there, but I didn't know to what capacity, and I love that man to death. So thank you for coming on, Samrat. Patrick, thank you for having us as always, and thank everybody in the chat room.
I want everybody, the whole point of what we've been doing recently is to show how much we have in common with all the other vapors all over the world and what it is that we're dealing with. This is not a local thing. This is everybody. This is an all-in battle that we have to fight. And we have to pay attention and support everyone all over the world when it comes to this stuff, because, Samrat said, what happens here might happen there. What happens there might get exported to somewhere else. And, if we haven't shown that with Australia, if we haven't we've talked about, Argentina, we talked about Mexico, we talked about all these places, and you still haven't figured out that we should be arm in arm with all of these advocates all over the world. We should be following every one of those groups that are on the INNCO website, on Twitter. We should be paying attention to what's going on. We have wonderful people in our community. Bill Tarling runs a news group on Facebook to share all of these international stories, and we sometimes we put our blinders on. We look at Mark Sliss is in the chat room, and we know that Mark is in Michigan, and Michigan's having their deal, but that what's going on in Michigan is no more important than what's going on in India. They're all important, and we should be focusing on as many of these as we individually, humanly can possibly do, because these are people that are dying. Everybody that listens to the lies and misinformation, that doesn't choose the least harmful method of nicotine delivery that they can get, and they keep smoking because of all the misinformation and lies, and they die. You know what? Not only is that on Bloomberg's hands, but a little bit of that is on our hands for not fighting enough, for not going that extra mile, for not doing what we can. We need to remember that people are dying, and yes, you need to spend time with your family, and yes, you need to enjoy your life, but part of that enjoyment, at least in my mind, is fighting these fuckers until my dying breath. I will continue to fight. We've been flying the pirate flag going on for a little bit now, and we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop. If there's a way that a vapor in India needs hardware or needs e-liquid and can't get it, we're going to figure out a way to get it there. We're not going to let people fall on the wayside because it's inconvenient for us, or it might cost a couple dollars or whatever. These people's lives are important. The vapors in Indonesia, the vapors in Thailand, the vapors in Malaysia, the vapors in the Philippines, all of these people are important, and they're our brothers. If you paid any attention to that video that I played from India a while ago, their stories are our stories. Their fight is our fight, and we're not just going to stop. So anyway, I love you guys. Thanks for coming to listen. Have a good weekend. When we get off of here, go find your kids and tuck them into the bed, give them a kiss on the top of the head. Go find your wife, plant one on her, enjoy the night, wake up in the morning and have a great weekend, because Monday we're going to wake up and all this shit is still going to be here, and we're still going to be fighting, and we're not giving up. So just remember, we're not going anywhere. We're here for the long haul. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Kev. Thanks, everybody in the chat room.
Thank you, Kevin.
We're here, and I'm gonna play the outro, and you guys have a good night. Peace.
See ya.
I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
We're exporting a whole lot of really bad and dangerous rhetoric, bad research, and unfortunately it's being picked up and amplified in other countries.
It's the same battle, Mr. Myers. We've been at it before. They want to addict these kids, this time to an e-cigarette, which has a chemical that's addictive. We know what it leads to. Sadly, it leads to tobacco addiction, disease, and death.
I'm going to get you addicted to nicotine. I have a customer for life. We have hundreds of cases nationwide where people have gotten sick or died using these devices.
Look what they're trying to do. All the delicious flavors of e-cigarettes are poison.
They're not people giving up smoking. They're not people that ever smoked before. Most people that vape never smoked before. Just think if your kid was doing this and winds up with an IQ 10 or 15 points lower than he or she would have had for the rest of her life.
Most people who vape are current or former smokers. For the addicted adult smoker who switches, there's going to likely be a reduction in risk.
There's a tremendous push to bring about prohibition, to actually prohibit vaping. Whereas the evidence strongly suggests that actually, up to now, the most successful way of people stopping smoking cigarettes is vaping.
Yeah. When vaping increases, smoking decreases.
That's right.
When vaping is restricted, smoking increases.
We're worried that, in fact, a lot of members of the public still think that using an e-cigarette is as harmful as smoking a cigarette. So, I mean, I have said that it would be tragic if smokers didn't quit and carried on smoking because they hadn't tried an e-cigarette, because they were worried about the safety of an e-cigarette.
The most disheartening thing is still the anti-choice rhetoric, the desire to enforce this quit or die mentality and refuse to allow individuals to reduce their risk unless they're willing to give up everything.
I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.